Calling to order at 7:02. First item is citizen queries. Citizen queries is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. While the committee and/or administrators will not typically respond during citizen queries, the chair, as presiding officer of the meeting, may choose to if she deems it expeditious. Further, should the chair believe that an issue falls outside the purview of the school committee, she may request that citizens direct it to the appropriate person or body so that the matter is given proper consideration. Citizen queries is limited to 3 minutes per person and a total of maximum of 15 minutes overall. This will be the only opportunity during this meeting for members of the public to comment. And should you comment, please state your name and street and know that this meeting is being recorded. And know that I'll be using a timer to signal when you've reached your allotted time and when the 15-minute period is over. Are there any citizen queries?
I am Alicia Thomas. I am the president of the Ipswich Educators Association, representing all 3 bargaining units. For those of you who are not auditory processors, I did send my remarks to your emails just before I got up here. The administrators began their presentation last night thanking staff and saying the building of the budget was a shared effort. However, that was true in only one building. I am well aware that it is not the purview of educators to build a budget. That falls to administrators. Collaborating with educators is a courtesy. However, it is not the administrative team for the educators when the educators have not been involved in the conversation. It is not fair nor respectful for administrators to say we were asked and tell you we were involved when we were not. Doing so gives a false sense of approval for the decisions that were made. I watched the meeting from home last night and was shocked at what was shared. Hearing that changes are based on student need, when that is not what the professionals in our buildings are reporting. We have asked administrators for how that change in need was determined, and we are not given answers or data. If you, the school committee, are interested in data, I am prepared to share our data with you. I was surprised to hear many of the reorganizations happening within the district. These reallocations would greatly impact students and set the district up for some major issues. When I inquired about them today, I easily found as many as 5 incidences where administrators met with staff members without union representation and presented information which amount to unfair labor practice violations. Clearly, the cost savings of these reorganizations will not be saving the district money because that cost would have to be reallocated to lawyer fees. I am not naive. I understand that there are great budget constraints. I empathize with the frustration that the last-minute changes from the town cause and the scramble that their lack of foresight causes the administrative team to have. That said, having last-minute changes is not new. The town seems to do this every year, so either the budget calendar has flaws by design or it's disrespectfully disregarded. This budget does not align with the value of Ipswich educators or the variety of mission statements and initiatives the district has spent substantial time and money building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Hi, my name is Anna LaGuardia. I live at 24 Mount Pleasant Ave. On paper, I'm the co-chair of the Winthrop School Council. Purpose of the council, as you may know, is to work on the school improvement plan and align it with the school budget and functioning of the school. So far, despite my having asked to work on the next plan per DESTI recommendations on their website, they have a process for it. It takes about a year to make a school improvement plan. We have not done this, nor have we reflected on our progress towards our current plan goals. In fact, we were told by Dr. Lukey that Dr. Blake said we didn't need to look at our school improvement plan until May or June. I have served on the council for all 3 of the last 3 Winthrop principals. I have always, until now, participated in conversations aligning the improvement plan and district goals to budget. You heard a proposal that was made with no input from staff or from the council or process. It was created by an interim principal who Dr. Blake chose. It does not align with the improvement plan that you all said was a good idea last fall. I work in special education, so I'm kind of obsessed with process. What's happening here is we are ignoring not only history, decisions that you made last year about budget, humans, and needs, reality of the current world. Right now, there's a Zoom happening for schools and especially school counselors to prepare for what's happening in the country right now. But also the processes of public education, which are widely available on the DESE website. Please, school committee, take a stand. Don't continue to allow Dr. Blake to make unilateral decisions and ignore processes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie Collier. I live at 9 Pleasant Street in Ipswich. And I come to you with a little bit of heart today. When I was shared the information that the budget cuts at Winthrop affected counselors' roles, my daughter, who's in 4th grade, is having a really hard time right now with friends at school. I think 4th grade drama is pretty common to us all. But I came home today to her crying because she was bullied on the bus again, and the counselor didn't have a moment to talk to her today. And that's not, I mean, they have a busy day, but if we think about cutting 2 counselors' roles and we already have students who aren't able to talk these things out, how do we help our children learn how to deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis? So I just ask for your help from my heart, in that these are really important people in our schools, and if we're thinking about cutting our budgets, just think about the children and how they're affected by that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Ashley Hersey. I came here last night. And I did email my speech that I wasn't able to finish off. However, again, I'm Ashley Hersey. I've been in education for 14 years. I've been in different capacities. New report, I worked with severe special ed. I've taught here for 6 years. I taught at Essex Tech for 5 years. I've been a coach of boys and girls soccer, softball. So I know that coaching a sport and teaching PE is not the same as teaching health. Take time to know my students. I'm currently one of the senior class advisors. I go to games. I go to musicals. I'm there. My classroom is right down the hall from the cafeteria. It is a welcoming space that I've spent a lot of time working on and worked hard to get that space. Health and physical education are graduate requirements at IHS, and we are the only teachers that actually teach every single student in the school. And that is not by accident. It was sadly proposed last night that my full-time position would be reduced to 0.6 due to budget constraints. However, I would like to bring attention to the budget document that I looked at today, which actually reflects that the deduction to a 0.4. This distinction matters because it significantly changes the way students will be impacted. For context, the wellness department are 3 different people. Mr. O'Flynn teaches the entire freshman class in addition to other PE courses. Mrs. McGinley teaches the entire sophomore class in addition to Project Adventure and other PE courses. I teach health, that is whenever it fits into the schedule, in addition to a fitness class in the weight room and in the classroom. Our classes are very popular and full. Reducing my health position would eliminate the fitness and nutrition elective and shift multiple classes to already full PE schedules, increasing sizes and potentially reducing the potential for upperclassmen to have PE. More importantly, reducing the health position and redistributing the courses undermines the integrity of health education as a whole. And as a person who suggests that health can be taught by a PE teacher simply because they are a coach or were a coach misunderstands the depth of our Tiger Health curriculum. Reducing this position sends a message to students and to the community that health education is expendable. I believe that this is a mistake. Health and PE are graduate requirements because it matters. We matter. Our students deserve a full-time health teacher, and I would be honored to continue serving Ipswich High School in that role. I hope we pause and consider not only the budget, I know the budget line, but also the long-term impact that our students that this has on our students and the well-being. And I'd also propose some questions and how this came to being, this reduction came about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Our next item is reading of the district mission statement.
Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. We will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice and demonstrating competency.
Thank you. All right, announcements and special acknowledgements. The school committee will hold a public hearing on the FY27 budget on Thursday, February 12th at 7 p.m. here in the Middle High School Ensemble Room. The policy subcommittee will meet remotely Tuesday, February 10th at 4 p.m. Additionally, I'll mention it again that we are accepting applications for the Payne Grant Committee as advertised in our newsletter. It's going to go out in Dr. Blake's newsletter this week as well. Anything else? Okay. Next item is the ICAM appointment. So in our folder, we have the information about the ICAM board and Scott Ames's experience. Do you have anything to add on that?
I do not.
Okay.
He's been involved for a number of years. I know he sits on the board. I think he's the vice president currently. And that means is that he takes over when the president isn't there.
Right.
Is this a position that we open up to the public, or to get, or are we just reappointing? Is that what we're doing?
I think it's just I believe it's a reappointment. I don't know. I know that my understanding is that the select board, school committee, and ICAM each have a rep.
Right. How do we, I mean, I'm saying, do we open it up to the public to see if anybody else is interested in the position? Is one of those?
I guess I wonder if we're looking for somebody to represent the schools, given his position. I don't know that we had the conversation, but I would imagine that would.
Yeah, you want me to go on over? Sure. Sitting in the whiteboard watching the orchestra.
If you could all speak up, that would be great. It's really hard to hear because you're not facing.
Where would you like me to begin? What do we need? Because I heard pieces of that and then came over. So
So the question is just on the reappointment. Does it who sits on board with you? How are the positions chosen? And the question that was just asked was, is it something that we have to open up to see if anybody else wants it, or is it just a reappointment? This is the first time it's come up that I'm.
this is the first time it's come up, so that's a question. That last one. Well, let me try and do this reasonably quickly. There are several board members. The board is picked by, there are 2 reps from the select board. There is 1 from school committee. There are 2 at large that are selected by the membership of ICAM, and then there are 2 that are selected by the board itself. And that is our president and our treasurer, and those are not generally public. None of them are generally, anybody want to come down and nominate. I mean, I suppose they could be, but they haven't been. The committee meets once a quarter. The board decides on ICAM budget, payroll, has input into programming, but a lot of that's Beth too. Beth is the one who does all the the footwork to make that work. We also oversee the equipment, i.e. the stuff in the studio. And when we need a replacement, we have to vote the funds for it, like you guys do when the school has to have a new boiler or whatever. Where are we going to find the cash for it and all those kinds of things? We do that. This would be a reappointment for, I can't even remember how many terms at this point. So, and one thing I had asked Laura originally was if you wanted to replace me, that would be your prerogative, go for it. And I'm not asking that. I'm just saying if you have somebody in mind, go for it. If somebody's expressed interest, then you could certainly do that. What my job is as the school committee rep is when we want to move things to the media center, for example, and see if we can get some financial assistance or even some planning assistance, that's my job to do that, to go to the board and ask these things. So, by the way, we have been down that path once before, and the last time we did it, it was cost prohibitive. So we'll see how it goes. Costs have come down, fortunately, so maybe. So I'll give you the number, and then you guys get to make that choice. Okay. Questions from you guys beyond that? That was kind of basic.
A lot more than I knew 5 minutes ago, so.
Okay, fair, yeah. Within the bylaws of the structure of who appoints who and how many and all that is in the original structure, which was approved by the then school committee and the selectmen at the time when they were selectmen, not select board. That's how long ago it was. And we all serve for 3-year terms. And I'm pretty sure if memory is serving, I think we've lost 2 members in the whole time. One of whom retired, moved out of town, and the other of whom went off to do other things. So, and no, it's not paid, by the way.
Are you willing to serve another 3?
I'm willing to go another 3.
All right. Motion to appoint Scott Ames as the ICAM School Committee representative on the ICAM board.
Second. Moved by Jen, second by Matt. Further discussion? All in favor? Right. Passes.
Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Hang out with the guys again.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
So now we're on to our FY27 budget discussion. Again, just want to mention that next week is our public hearing. Then we will be discussing it at least one more time, if not more than one more time after that. I want to make sure we, approach this the right way. I was thinking we could go kind of school by school as it was presented, but I'm open to other ideas if people know how they want to tackle this discussion.
School sounds good.
Okay.
Order of the deck.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right. So we'll start with thoughts on Doyon, and I guess everybody can kind of speak once and we'll go from there.
Could I make a general district-wide
Yep.
comment? And I apologize for the way the seating is, my back is due. I'll do my best to speak up. When we started this, going through the budget process, particularly early discussions in the fall and actually really in the spring of last year, we began talking about not just this year's budget, but the multi-year budget because of our concerns for what future overrides might look like. So go back to where we started. Our current projections for the next override, if it was for 5 years, is $8 million. That's optimistic. And I don't think that any one of us would think that that's acceptable to bring to the town. That number is significant. And it was with that we began the longer term planning to how do we minimize that, but also balance that with making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep level service for our students. There obviously needs to be some kind of a trade-off in both places. And so that's where we're starting from. This isn't just an individual idea about what might we do this year. This is really to make sure we're long-term planning for the town, for the residents and for all the parents and students that are here. So that was our starting point. I think that's important to keep in mind as for context where we're making some of these changes. Second thing I just wanted to bring up, and I think it's important as we go into the individual school conversations, is we should be thinking about, in addition to the individual changes that were recommended, how does it align with the values and the strategy of the school committee? One of the things we've been talking about for at least for the 3 years that I've been on the board has been social emotional learning for our students and particularly rebounding from the pandemic. And I don't think anyone would say we're completely past that. And so how do we continue to focus on that? How do we bring the best possible academic rigor to our students? How do we make sure that enrichment like arts and athletics are there? So we've been thinking about all those things and how do we balance them? That's a lot to kind of put in the mix and then try to figure out what can we persist, where do we need to make adjustments. We've talked specifically about the budget. We've tried to balance where can we persist programs and minimize impact if we make cuts, but also try to minimize the changes that are made in the classroom that students will directly feel. That's not always entirely possible, but that's been part of our strategy as well. Again, I bring that up as sort of represent from the budget subcommittee and how to best represent the values and the strategy for the full school committee. That's where our thinking is in. And so as we go through each of the schools, I think that's a good conversation point for us of what is our overall strategy, not just individually, where might we make a change or where do we see things. I think both of those need to be part of the conversation, but I want to start with that. I think that's an important way to guide us as we go through the conversation.
I have another,
No, go ahead.
so I guess the point was made earlier by Alicia Thomas was that, because I was under the impression that it was discussed with the instructors and these are the, okay. So is it possible to get that feedback of what the teachers' data and what they believe would be the right decisions to make before we move? I don't know in terms of scheduling how that all works, but I feel like that's a huge component of what we're going to be discussing tonight that I feel like is so important. They're the ones that are they're the ones that are in front of the students. They're the ones who know what the students need, what works. And I think it's important to get that feedback before we.
We can certainly ask them for the feedback, and I'm sure that they would share.
Does anybody mind if I come to the mic?
Why don't we, public hearing would be great.
But we can get the feedback from them, and I certainly want that. I also did a survey.
Yeah.
I opened a survey with the staff, and I got maybe 35 or so, maybe 40 responses from the staff. We're just asking honestly for feedback on the proposed budget. Not on the proposed budget, but on areas where we can make some reductions.
For
and
ideas.
Ideas. Thank you.
I don't know where they are.
So I do have this. I do have that information, and I'll summarize that and share that aloud.
I know I'm the new guy here, and but I've been mulling this exact subject over since last night, because I asked the same question. I know Matt talked about all the student-facing things. But we have an expression that I live by, humans are more important than hardware, and I know that we have to make some tough choices. But the question I had last night still remains, and it was, I still can't figure out how we can balance a single person, and I would like to see that feedback as well, where the PE teachers said, yep, we're 100% on board and we can teach this thing, and the health teacher said, yeah, we're comfortable turning it over because it doesn't sound like there's a plan in place to do that handover, and that concerns the heck out of me. I mentioned that last night as well, and it kept me up a little bit thinking about it. I don't think they're compatible jobs, and I know there's tons of tough decisions. I hate to be in your shoes. I was impressed with the level of detail, but I didn't get the impression you really thought this one through a lot. No, I don't mean to derail the meeting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, welcome to speak.
Before we go school by school, I also want to
Sure,
say
yeah.
Okay.
We'll do opening overall
remark.
comments first. Sure.
So Matt's comment last night at the end of the meeting, which I'm going to call the drop the mic comment about student facing, really hit home. And I thought last night about what our values are as a school committee and what my values are as far as a representative here and education. And I think I'm going to start with our first speaker last night, Ms. Hersey, about the reduction and the suggestion that the PE teacher can teach health. And I go back to last year, and I ask you all to remember that last year I was very vocal when we were rolling out health standards about, instead of including a new position in the budget, to roll that into maybe for the first year having the PE teachers trained on teaching health. And I was told very strongly that that's not appropriate and that they can't teach health. And that I feel like I'm hearing it out of both sides of mouths. And that's what I heard last night. It also made me think last year that part of what I was trying to save last year was world language in the elementary schools. And that also got cut. So back to, what are my values? My values are to put educators and counselors with children. And the budget that we talked about last night that was presented, I feel like was a lot of hard work, but a very first step in trying to reduce the budget. I feel like when we're trying to prolong an override or bring down the expected or needed amount in an override, the first step should not be taking educators away from children. That should be the last desperate step. And I feel like we're not there. So as far as like what I value, I feel like we should have a global conversation as this committee about what we value. And then possibly take it back as a budget subcommittee to incorporate that into change. And I would rather see administrative positions that don't touch students go before student-facing positions as a first step in a budget. So I don't know how to guide this discussion, but I feel like we should maybe as a group talk about what we value and then be able to take that back and have further discussions at a subcommittee level about changes.
I think one thing that would be helpful in order to move the conversation beyond, obviously we have a lot to get through tonight with what's in front of us, but I think what we're all saying to some degree is we need more information to be able to come back to this, right? So we can only get through so much based on what we have here. So Alicia, I hear you. Obviously, if you have data to share, that would be helpful for us to be able to review later and in between. Last year, I think this came up directly related to the language program, which was what are the standards, right? And so this is where it makes it challenging for us at the table who are not the experts, who are not living in how are the standards implemented? And are we saying we're meeting the standard as a baseline, check the box because we're doing what we need to meet expectations? But where are we looking at the standards more closely and saying, to Sasha's point, how do these things align with our values as a community and with all of the other documents that we have spent time on identifying places where we're going to go above the standards and say we're going to do more here because it's a value. So we're not just check the box meeting the standards, we're going above and beyond that. And so I think some supplemental information for us to be able to take away after tonight would certainly be, we looked at the health standards, I think, at the elementary level last year because that was the positions that were being discussed. So to understand them better for the high school level and the position specifically that is on the table this year would be helpful. So if that's something that you could get to us, I think that would be helpful. And then I don't know anything about what the general sort of social emotional standards look like for counseling support. Obviously, we've spent a lot of time talking about what does it look like for implementation for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and we've spent time talking about what that looks like for the district and all the work that the teachers are doing, but I don't know enough about what the standards look like for us to be able to say, are we meeting that? Are we going above and beyond because we have student need that is above and beyond? So anything that we can have to help really kind of tease that out which won't help the conversation tonight, but I think afterwards for us to be able to continue to sink our teeth into it would be really helpful.
I also noticed that the, that, again, what Matthew said at the end was, made a huge impact in my thinking with the student facing. And it just seems, the budget seems very top heavy. That there's a lot of positions that are being removed from the buildings that have the students and not the necessarily central office or, you know, that's just something I noticed.
Any other?
Want to proceed?
Do you want to go school by school at this point?
What do we think? Do we want to go school by school still?
Is there an alternative?
Global conversation.
I think there's probably two parts.
No,
I would say maybe two things, but to reinforce the conversation we just had. We could go school by school, and are there specific points that we'd like to make either with the changes we've seen or that we didn't see? And then the second part would be what other information would be helpful for us to take a decision, maybe have it in that vein would be my suggestion. And still go school, facilities, district. That's my point, please. Go ahead.
All right. So starting with Doyon, what did we see? What did we not see? And what do we need?
I have a couple,
Go for it.
maybe administrative. This is what I want to follow from last night. Tom, in the budget book for Doyon,
I did.
let me just get to the right page. On 23, there were a couple of places where we talked about a decrease in FTE, but the total dollar amount went up. I just want to make sure we understand what those are and which is the correct number. So the first one is the very first row in undistributed. It goes from 16 to 15 FTE, but the total budget goes from 1.419 to 1.435. So it's a reduction in staff, but an increase in budget. And you said you believe some of that was we're changing allocation. Is the budget right or is the FTE right?
The budget's right.
The budget's right. So that should say 16 without without a reduction?
Without a reduction, the budget is correct.
Okay.
The FTE needs to be carried over at 16.
16, okay. And then the other line item that was like that
Is in
was in kindergarten.
Correct.
And so same thing, there's a reduction on the teacher and the para, but the budget went up. Which one's correct there?
Well, the budget is the budget is correct there as well. It's the FTE count that has to be adjusted.
Okay, so it should be 4 for each of those. It's staying at 4 again this year?
No, it's not staying at 4. It's going down to 3. Because that teaching position is going from kindergarten to grade level, which would be in the undistributed. So kindergarten goes from 4 teachers to 3,
Yep.
and the rest of the building goes from 16 to 16, remains at 16.
All right, so if it's
because
going,
of the other teacher reduction.
so if it's going from 4 teachers to 3 teachers, currently it's 258,000, it's going up to 267, so that number should come down.
But it will move when the teacher moves. Right now, there is a sufficient amount of money on both of these lines to support the allocation of staff. It's just that where the dollars are currently residing.
You have to explain it, because if we're going down in headcount, I don't know how we possibly go up in dollars. If we're going from four people to 3, or in the case, 8 people to 6, but the overall budget allocated is going up in spite of the decrease.
Well, okay, I will certainly dig into that. That's not the calculations that we've produced, but I will certainly.
Okay, so we get that as a follow-up.
I will triple check that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, that's it.
I don't know if I can help clarify it, because I think what you're saying is there isn't a reduction in that position. That bubble year kindergarten teacher, there's 4 sections in kindergarten now, it's moving to 4 in first, right? So it's just moving.
I get the moving the FTE, the dollars isn't following it. And so it looks like we're either over budgeted or there's money there available.
the
Or maybe it's just
FTE
purely a typo. That's what's unclear to me.
I will certainly double check
Yeah.
that, but the FTE hasn't moved and the dollars haven't moved. Right now, both lines are correct.
Yeah.
But the FTE has to move up and the dollars will move with it.
Okay.
There's a sufficient amount of money to support, between both of those lines, is a sufficient amount of money to support the budget as it's presented.
Okay. Got it.
Does anybody else have any comments on Doyon?
I do, and this might be for both elementary schools. So we're reducing, we have a retirement for PE, I believe it.
I'm sorry, I didn't,
We have a retirement for PE
yes.
at the elementary
Yes.
level. And so right now, we have 1.5 PE teachers at each elementary school,
Correct,
and we're going to 1 at each elementary school.
correct.
What does that look like?
I mean, for the students during a day, over the course of
the
the week?
year, I mean,
Yeah.
up until, if we need 1.5, how are we going to 1?
You just rearranging the current schedule and inserting a health teacher in there as well?
Would there be a reduction in the PE time for individuals? Okay.
I believe there is.
I think that's what Jen's
So it's
getting at,
reduction
just
in
concern.
PE
It's a
time.
reduction in service, yeah.
But I think Adam spoke to that last night too, in saying that some of that sounded like a response again to the health standards last year and trying for them to continue to sort of juggle how do they puzzle all the specials together. So I think that's and incorporating some of the health standards into the PE instruction time. So I don't know what that, it would, maybe we could get some more granular information about like what the actual schedule would look like.
Mhm.
On for our list of things we're wanting.
Yeah, maybe just to be very specific, we're losing a third of the staff we have supporting PE. Does that mean they're losing a third of their time? And then how are we filling that and what are we filling that with?
Okay. Do you have more on Doyon?
No, that's it for Doyon for me right now.
Okay. Anybody else on Doyon? Okay. All right. Winthrop.
One of the things that stood out for me, if you're looking at the budget highlight slides for all of the schools, for the other 3 schools, everybody's budgets are going up, and Winthrop's budget has a significant decrease that is inequitable. So just sort of wondering how we landed on that. I mean, I understand to some degree, it's going to be, individual school needs are going to vary to some degree, but this is just so significantly different. I'm sure you're trying to look at how to make it somewhat equitable between all schools and buildings. So it seems there's a large differential here. So some orientation around that would be helpful.
I have a really hard time with the reduction of any staff, teacher or others. But in the current environment, Sasha mentioned before, about the pandemic and the looming effects of the pandemic. And the cutting of a school counselor at this time, with what they are all facing, It just doesn't make sense as a choice, right? They are more needed now than ever. That's across all grade levels, but that particular one to me, I think, really, really stuck out. It is something I would really love to explore about how we not do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, we have to find another solution. Like this is not an option.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's super important to have the school counselor. I don't know why it was felt that necessary to go negative, have a negative increase when I would think that there would be discussion amongst the schools saying, so this is where we are, and just sort of go in that ballpark instead of having to go so far below to come up with these cuts is concerning. And so I guess to see what the salaries are for them, but I think it's a question for sure that we need to get more information on why that had to go so extreme.
I guess this might be a good opportunity for my question that I was going to ask and save for the high school. I noticed under high school line items, youth budget, all the coaches were full. And I don't know how we paid them in the past. Is the mechanism that we paid those coaches in the past not available to us anymore? I mean, because that could, if we just delayed moving them into the budget and kept paying them the way that we have in the past, because I'm positive about athletics. I'm a big fan of it, so if there's a reason why, but it could pay for the offset in people. That instead of letting people go, keeping the same funding mechanisms for the two. And again, I could be talking out of my lane, but I don't understand why we would add things into the budget at the expense of taking people out of it. And that seems a big disconnect.
That's a good point. Okay. Anybody else for Winthrop?
I am a little concerned with Winthrop. So it looks like fourth grade, 4 sections is going to go to fifth grade, 3 sections. And right now the numbers look like 23, 23, 24 in 3 sections of fifth grade for next year. And I am concerned that that's going to turn into 25, 25, 26. or there's usually shifts in the summer, regardless of grade level. And I wonder what our threshold is. I think we've talked about that as like a global, we need to have a bigger discussion about what our threshold is for class size based on educator feedback. I'm concerned about that fifth grade being too large. And then too large for the class size. And then in addition, if we're taking away, which I don't agree with, taking away an adjustment counselor in that building and increasing class size, it just seems like a double whammy of not correct.
I had a question about that, and I don't know if this is educationally sound, but like, would that be a situation where you perhaps broke up a
Can you speak up a little?
broke up a co-taught classroom for a year? You were able to, use a teacher for that capacity. Okay, so I'm just again wondering, just
Teacher was certified in that.
It's hard for people to hear. It's sort of hard for me to hear sitting this closely when.
Yeah, the question was, can we break up a co-teaching classroom? It's only if the teacher is certified to teach that grade.
but I guess there is perhaps a way to navigate that class size if we just looking at that one issue. Okay. What was your other question? Statement about Winthrop, I'm sorry, you mentioned the 5th grade. Oh, and it was in relation to the supports.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can't hear.
Diana was just clarifying that
Sorry,
I didn't
I'm,
have
like,
any
losing
more
my voice
questions. And
also.
she's losing her voice.
Yeah.
So she just wanted to make sure, the other part of my question was that I had the question about the class size in 5th grade, but also the support with the therapist. Okay. Any,
Diana, I wanted to, at least from my end of things, speak to Haley's question about maybe process. From a budget planning perspective, when we sort of kick this off with the administrators, we don't give anyone a goal, and we don't say you have to cut this and you have to cut that. We really want the feedback to be driven by what's going on in the building. And in Winthrop's case, I think the reduction is as large as it is in big part because there are 3 retirements. And then the retirements and one of those retirements is someone who is being recommended not to be replaced. So that's where the reduction is seen. And then some of those, parts then fall from there as the math rolls. There are 3 outright reductions being recommended as well: the school counselor and RBT, and the half of the PE teacher. So, but some of those, one retirement is not being replaced, another retirement is to be replaced, as well as the shared music teacher, also to be replaced. But those salaries of those who are retiring are notably higher than we will be replacing them with. So there's a net savings there as well. That's more of a process question than a building sort of planning question. So it's not really driven by math goals. We don't tell administrators you need to cut 10%, or you need to cut 5%, or you need to cut whatever. It's the feedback that we want to get is that what the needs of the building may be best served at.
So, in budget processes, I've been involved in the past, we have something called requirements, where it's something they want to have, but the budget didn't support. Do the schools provide you with that as unfunded requirements, where they think, boy, this is something that I really need, but I can't fund it? They do. There's a list.
Oh, sure. In fact, on the first page of the budget book, one of the things I've provided the last couple of years in my doing this has been the principal's requests.
Okay.
Just so the community and the school committee gets a sense of what the professional educators believe it will take to run their building.
Okay.
So that's really our starting point. We sort of want math blinders, if you will, to be able to please provide us with the best needs of the building. And if we looked at, I think it's sliding here, but I don't know, page 4 maybe.
What?
Oh yeah, it's in I don't know what you may have up, but it's
Page 5.
page. I think it's page 4, isn't it? Slide number 4.
Yeah.
If you have the PDF up, slide 4, which is the summary of which we looked at on the screen last night, but it starts with fiscal 24, 25, and 26. If you look at the next section, sort of squarely in the middle, where it says, what the level service budget was, those are the blue columns. The level service budget is pretty much my prediction. This goes back to the fall, my prediction on what a level service budget would cost the district. Level service being to bring everything forward, not necessarily level funding, not with the same amount of money, but the same level of service. My prediction back in the fall was that would be a 6.28% increase. The column in the middle in the gray is what the administrators provided to Dr. Blake and I in the middle of January, thereabouts. And you see, the cost of my level service estimate was $43.5 million. The principal's requests came in at just above $44 million.
I guess that's my question.
So, and then we have to balance what their requests are with what the available resources are.
Understand completely, but what are the things and people that dropped out between 44 million and 8. That's the question I'm getting at, because it seems to me that 44 was the requirement. And somewhere between 44 and 41.8 are unfunded requirements.
Correct.
And so do we have a list of the people and things?
Should certainly currently share the following sets of budgets, right? The following actual budgets by school and by program. The master document that I keep has the list of what the administrator's requests are. Obviously didn't necessarily include that. How many columns can we actually fit on a spreadsheet? But happy to share that.
Extra money, if money, what's next in the bump list, I guess, that if we have an additional 100,000, 115,000 comes to us, what's next on the bump list? And so I think having the unfunded requirements prioritized is an important thing to have. I'm sorry to derail conversation.
That's a great idea.
I'm just having, what's the requirement, and then what's the funded requirement, and then what's unfunded? Because the 44 seems to me that's what the superintendents and the principals needed.
That is correct. That is absolutely
Gave them
correct.
enough money, they didn't quite cover it, but what other need was uncovered? And that's what I'd just like to, hopefully we're maintaining a prioritized master list of it.
Oh yeah, no, certainly have a master list from my time here, and we can certainly share that out.
Anything else on Winthrop? I think that's where we were, right? Okay. Moving on to the middle school, middle school. I'm seeing no comments on the middle school.
I'm trying to get to the slides
Okay.
on my desk. Sorry.
Middle school starts on page 35.
Thanks.
Yep.
I don't have any questions. I think what's highlighted here and that Mr. Ginolfi spoke about was essentially the student need is literally shifting, right? The students who have needed RBTs are moving up to the high school level.
Correct.
So,
And their support is moving with them. Yep.
right. So the sort of remaining student need can be met by paraprofessionals. So no, that's okay. Sorry.
What's misleading is that the microphones aren't for the room, the
Yeah.
microphones are for TV land, so we
Usually I don't have a problem with
into it.
projecting. Sorry. No, I just was trying to highlight, I guess, reiterate what Mr. Ginolfi said last night and just make sure I understand correctly that the RBTs that are, they're not being reduced, they're moving up. The students who require RBTs are moving up to the high school level. So the remaining student need can be met by paraprofessionals. That's okay. So obviously we heard feedback tonight that maybe there wasn't a well-rounded sort of review or input from staff to administrators, certainly at the Winthrop School. But what would that process be? What would the process have been at the middle school level to make sure that we feel equipped, that the paraprofessionals are equipped to?
I believe that the administration had a conversation with the program manager at the middle level, as well as the staff involved.
Okay. Maybe we could.
To our demise. Because we weren't supposed to do that, apparently.
I understand. Okay.
Other comments on the middle school? Do we need anything on the middle school?
There was a similar FTE dollar discrepancy in the camp last night, but we'll do that as a follow-up also.
That's right. Yep. Okay. All right. On to the high school.
we can start in the high school and maybe actually begin sort of where Paul did when he mentioned it. We moved the cost of the assistant coaches from the athletic revolving account into the budget. I think that's 82,000. I'd like to move that back, and it was the graduation and what was that piece?
And to NEASC.
Thank you. Yeah, the accreditation.
Accreditation.
Also was moved from revolving into the budget, which I'd like to move back. I say that not understanding if there was a strategic decision why. I heard John's answer, but there is funding available in those revolving accounts for both of these items, just like there has been. Is there something greater that I might be missing of why?
Sure. Well, so for the athletics, as you can appreciate, we have the revolving fund is populated by parent fees. So we had been paying for these coaching positions based on the fees that parents paid. So there is a replenishing source of revenue by continuing to receive fees next year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really, that's really a strategic decision that the school committee and school administration is making to make the budget more supportive of high school sports than relying on the parent fees.
Okay.
But existing, and for years, the assistant coaches and others were paid for the fees that were collected.
Okay.
So that's question one. Question two is the two other things that Mr. Mitchell brought up last night, meaning the cost of graduation and the NEASC accreditation fees have been paid in the past from school choice funds. We have been trying to be very carefully, using those because they are deplenishing. Starting here in fiscal 26, we took the principal's discretionary spending from school choice away, and had to ask them to any discretionary spending that they had to bring into their budget. On what opportunity do you have maybe that there are things that don't need to be spent, or not, so we can preserve school choice as long as we can effectively for the growing cost of healthcare. The growing cost of healthcare is still at 20%, but if you see in the budget, we're only charging to the budget.
Got it.
Demonstrably less than 20%.
Sure. I think it's that preserve part. We're preserving while we're making cuts I don't strategically agree with.
Fair enough.
We should take those down to zero and then move to the budget. So in your healthcare example, we shouldn't save money to the side when we're having to make cuts other places. So I'd like to move both of those back to be funded from the revolving accounts. There's also.
So those are three things. So just to understand. So
yes, sorry. We had, in the
No,
discussion last night, we had
clear.
lumped the accreditation and the graduation together. So yes, the three things. Yep.
Move those two back to school choice and move the growth in the athletics budget back to the revolving fund.
That's right.
So that was the athletics was $114,000. The athletic movement was taking $114,000 out of the revolving fund and putting it. Now 82 of that.
Yeah.
82 of that were coaches. It's not just
okay.
coaches.
So right. So I was using the wrong number.
Other contracted services, but the total increase to the athletic budget from revolving was all of the coaches referring to, which is 82,000, but the total of 114 was with other things that were athletic revolving fund was paying for.
Can you point me to the full 114? I only see the 82 in the budget. Is the remainder of that?
Sure. You go to I guess page number 50.
I see where you're pointing to.
Go to page 50.
I'll check the math. When I was looking at it last night, it was 82. That's why. Okay, I see where it is. I'll check that myself then. Okay.
Well,
I think the intention
has been the
same.
figure passed around because that's the cost of coaches.
I think that's
But
what's
the
in my head.
114 is the total cost being moved.
Okay. So then, that's my intention. And then
I
The
want to comment.
114 or the 82?
my understanding
It doesn't
is
have to be
previously.
decided tonight. I mean,
No,
there's
I understand. My understanding is previously, it was the 82 that was added, or that was taken out of revolving, and now it was coming out of the budget. That's the only difference, or you're saying it's the full 114?
The full 114, we're growing the budget by $114,000 and reducing the reliance on the athletic revolving fund by $114,000.
Yeah. Then my intention is the full.
82
Is the
Of the
coach.
114 for coaches.
Okay, yeah, then my intention, my intention is the full 114 to move back to be funded from the revolving account.
So can I just make a comment about
Yeah.
that? That was discussed quite a bit because the sub-varsity coaches being paid out of the revolving account, the revolving fund is shrinking,
Mhm.
and it's a big issue that we, have people on waivers and people on payment plans, and that the coaches are part of the collective bargaining unit. And what do we pay out of a revolving fund that is user fee based? And it made more sense to, I believe from a budget standpoint, if, now we're required by MIAA to have three refs per game. And that seems more like a user fee revolving account line, but that paying coaches part of the collective bargaining unit out of a revolving user fee account
Yeah.
didn't seem appropriate.
I agree with that if we're not in a year where we're reducing budgets. Doing it that way is going to leave that funding sitting in a revolving account to be used for something else. I'd rather draw the cash out of that rather than having to reduce positions to pay for the 114 in athletics.
Okay.
When there are funds available someplace else to fund it.
Okay.
I agree with the principle, not the specific action this year.
Okay. And then later tonight on the agenda, we can talk about how we're going to fix that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else on high school?
I have a question about high school. So when, or in general, but because it pertains to the high school in this conversation, when a position is reduced from 1 FTE down to point anything, do we or does the state have a threshold for the benefits that that person receives? Like, is there at what point does somebody receive benefits that come along with the position? Is it point, whatever?
So it's not driven by FTE as much as it's driven by the number of hours in an employee's week or an employee's, by week. So typically, it's a 0.5 position. If you work less than 20 hours, you're not required to be provided benefits.
Okay.
So a part-time employee less than a 0.5, less than a half-time worker is not required to be provided benefits.
So do we have an answer for what came up tonight about Ms. Hersey was told she was being reduced to 0.6, but
She's being reduced to 0.6. Oh, the recommendation is 0.6.
recommendation
not
is
0.4.
0.6, not 0.4. So still benefit eligible.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So,
Or in high school?
There's a, go ahead. I've spoken enough. Go ahead.
Not to beat that
You need a
horse
bell.
on this one. I apologize if any horse owners in the room, but so now we've cleared up 100 and something thousand to go back into the budget. I assume that back to the principals and say, okay, were these FTE reductions really requirement driven, or were they budget, to find money in the budget? So the next iteration, we probably see some changes.
Oh, indeed.
Okay.
It's entirely likely that, part of the process, part of the annual process would be, right, that the administration presents the budget on night one. There's a couple of nights of discussion, including next Thursday, and then the meeting after that. So you're not scheduled to actually vote on any of this until probably beginning of March.
We're still iterating on.
Correct. This is the beginning of the process. This isn't the conclusion of the process.
Well, at least 500 bucks. Well, like, at least 500. There was, in the revolving accounts, there's that middle school, high school parking pass fee, which hasn't been in place, but the dollars have been sitting there. We've talked about that before. Can you remind me, there was a question at one point if there are specific stipulations of how that could be used, for example, like relining the parking lot, or if we have flexibility on that. Do you remember? And if not, maybe it's just a follow-up. Do you know? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I do. So the stipulation on the collection of those fees in the past, we don't charge that fee any longer, but was that it would be used to maintain the integrity of the parking lot.
Okay.
So certainly anything to do with repairs or repaving or striping,
Okay.
maybe even lighting.
Right. I didn't remember where our flexibility was on that one. Okay, thanks.
Anybody else on high school?
Second. I think I'm good.
Closing thoughts?
Building operations?
Oh,
Yeah.
operation, sorry about that.
Do we have sort of a, an immediate plan in place in terms of the specific bullet 2 for the continued need for repairs for the boilers at Doyen and middle school, high school? Okay,
Later on the agenda.
great. um,
They are, the short answer is they're both prioritized. We're gonna talk about the capital plan. We're gonna see we submitted $2.6 million in
Round numbers, yeah.
requests in the capital plan. We're looking at receiving somewhere in the area of 900,000. So the boiler at the high school and the boiler at Doyen are the two top priorities they have.
Which will likely be around 800,000 for the two boilers.
No, that's a good question.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the capital plan.
yeah, no, I know. Okay.
Didn't mean that to be a preview. We
Yeah.
just might as well answer your question. Stay tuned. No.
Elephant in the room. Yeah.
All right, and anything else on operations? Central office?
For central office, it's hard not to look at this and go, okay, well, that was the biggest increase. And I think I started my comments off earlier tonight by saying this is the beginning of a budget process, and I am not as comfortable with an increase in central office and decreases of student-facing professionals.
The only two cents I would add to that is that central office as a title for this section, it can be a little misleading. It's not actually the central office. It's not the administration at the Lord Square building. The central, district-wide services include, like, for example, the cost of the collective bargaining agreement raises. It includes the cost of insurances. So there were lots of district-wide costs. It's called central office, but it's not the administration at.
All right, the first bullet, yep.
Is this
Well, it's
inordinately?
several of those bullets. It's the down below. It's the health insurance premiums are in there. The offset, the choice funds, pension obligations. All of that's carried in the central office budget.
Is this inordinately high due to the 23%? It just says 20 here, but obviously we know there's an additional 3 for the collective bargaining agreements for health insurance. So does that, and it spiked last year as well. Do we know what the net budget percentage increase for central last year was? Just interesting to know how much, because that's a huge piece, right? That 23%. So how much does that impact what it typically would be compared
So
to?
last year, just to your particular question, it would have been 22%, because on the employer share of insurance in fiscal 26 went from 65% to 67%. So we're increasing the employer share of health insurance through the collective bargaining process, but we've done it in 2 chunks. Chunk 1, which was coming into fiscal 26, was a 2% increase. Chunk 2 was going into fiscal 27, a 3% increase. So, and the cost of the cost of insurance itself went up last year, I think, by 20 or 21% as well. These are 2 major years of the cost of insurance going up.
What might actually be helpful to see the previous year. So obviously it spiked last year and spiked this year. So what was it the year before? If we don't need to do it now, we can
Okay.
follow up on
But
it
no, I can
later, but
certainly
it
do
would be
that.
helpful to see the
Sure.
year over year increase
Absolutely.
there and how that piece impacts
Yep.
the rest, unless there's anything else here that you would call out that is also inordinately high outside of.
Well, I think that the second to last bullet is, we're now in fiscal '27 paying the first principal payment against the roofs. We did 2 roof projects at Doyon and Winthrop and this building. And 2 years ago, we did all 3 significant roof projects. And fiscal '27 is the first year we have to begin to pay the bank back.
And even though they're bonded by the town, the school district gets the bill to include in our proposed budget.
But then this is the first year, but we're going to see, obviously that's going to,
But it won't go away.
Right.
It will only
at that
stay.
percent.
No, it will. So the debt service will change as interest rates and things change each year, but it will certainly won't get any lower than that until a few years out. Right. Both of these are short-term bonds, so they're 10-year borrowing. So it's not misrepresented, but certainly at the beginning, the costs are higher than they are over the course of time.
What is the bullet point? It says increased need for professional development for staff. Is that sounds very general.
Sure. Well, what I mentioned, we have added a professional development day into the teacher contract.
Yep.
We have to pay for the additional day in the cost related to bringing in a provider or making materials available or whatever those related costs are.
Okay.
But it's an additional professional development day.
Okay.
Is that part of the accreditation? I mean, do you have to show that the teachers have professional development to get accredited?
No, professional development, I'm sorry.
Sure I'm sure at NEAS and C, I'm sure it's probably part of their requirements. I don't know that actually.
So again, going back to the fact that it's the schools themselves that have proposed to cut some positions that are the student-facing roles, just to make sure that the central office is also considering what the principals have also had to consider when they're looking at their school. Okay, we have to, we really need this person, but we can't afford. And so I just asked that the central offices, that's also happening there, because those are, there's a lot, all the schools have people that they've put up saying, we can't keep you in the budget. And I just want to make sure that's also happening at the central office. It's just,
No, I can
to do.
speak to that.
yeah.
If you go in the budget book on page 62, didn't call it out as a highlight last night, which I suppose we could have, but under the business office, which is called finance and personnel, you see there's a reduction in FTE there, the second line down, going from 3.3 FTEs to 2.75, a reduction of 0.55 FTEs, and a reduction of $56,000. That is a reallocation of staff time and a reallocation of where some salary supports would come from. That is shifting, those dollars are shifting into revolving funds that the central office supports as well. I think those are lawful and legitimate uses of the administration of those revolving funds. So I just wanted to point out that there's also a budget reduction in the central office.
Thank you.
Or in the business office, yeah.
For the back to the revolving funds, we talked about this a little bit before, but the school food services, that's not just for equipment. You can use it to cover staff, the revolving account?
We do, and we pay 100% of the administration of school food service. So the budget does not pay any cost of the cafeteria staff.
Mhm.
the cooks, the line staff at all.
Includes the high school.
Includes oh yeah, all three buildings. Yeah.
In the high school, from time to time, you have supervision in the room during lunch for the students. Sometimes a teacher or counselor may be in there.
Yeah.
You potentially pull from this line item to support some of the cost of the person that's in the room there.
Well, that's a teaching position and a teacher duty or a building administrator duty. I'm not sure how we would appropriately fraction that out.
If part of
Someone's doing 20 minutes in the cafeteria for lunch duty is,
if that was written in as part of their responsibilities as part of their contract.
it is.
I'm
Not
saying if that
specifically
were
lunch
for
duty.
specific roles, you could draw from that account because it's expected as part of their contract.
Perhaps. I mean, I'm not sure that, frankly, the supervision of students is the responsibility of the food service department. That's why the teaching faculty and the administrative faculty perform that function, not not food service staff.
It's taking place during that specific window in that specific location is what I'm thinking. And if that gives us flexibility. Full funding, especially since there's a balance we're not using it up each year. So that might give us a little bit of flexibility in some other positions. I think something to consider and make sure there's no issue with it, but certainly something to consider, especially for a couple of the positions we talked about here. It might apply more than others. Okay.
We're talking about utilize. Just to clarify, you're talking about utilizing food service staff to supervise students during.
No, I'm talking about in the.
You're talking about
No, I'm glad you had, because no, that's not what I'm
money
suggesting.
to pay teachers.
There's a line item there's a revolving account that fluctuates between $700 to $1 million that we use that line item, the funding from there, both for equipment and to pay for the staff currently. What I'm bringing up is that we also have, beyond the staff that's in there now, we often have supervision in the high school.
Thank you.
Could you use some of those funds for that additional person in that capacity?
Yeah, supervision in all the schools.
Great point. Yeah, I'm using the high school as the example, but yes, you're right. Might that give us flexibility to use
Yes,
that?
I
Okay,
got,
you got it.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. No, I thought I was clear. Sorry. Okay.
Anything to close? Okay. I just want to make sure, excuse me, I captured everything. So I'm hearing we want to see the high school health standards. We really want to understand more about the relationship or lack thereof between the health and the physical education roles, how the PE time is going to be affected at the elementary schools, how the supports are going to be, guidance supports are going to be affected at the elementary schools with this proposal. I should always clarify. We're looking for prioritization of the unfunded requirements. We're looking at some different usage of revolving funds. The big things I got down. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, I am personally in agreement with I'm feeling along the same lines of everybody who's spoken. It's just hard to feel this way and know these things, and then also appreciating our budget is just growing beyond the allotment annually, and then seeing this budget is one piece of a bigger town issue that we're currently this budget is getting drawn down by some building maintenance, but then we need to be looking at other strategic projects in the future and how does everything play together. So it's just a lot to take in, and that's why we're going to have a nice lengthy budget season with lots of meetings and discussion to hopefully come out with a satisfactory end result.
As I said last night in the beginning, my opening comments, these budgets are difficult to put together any year, even when we do have adequate funding. Certainly the decreasing revenues in town and the money that has been I'll say, coming off the top before the town even decides what percentage we're going to get and what that dollar amount is, that's been decreasing. So, that's the sort of part of the moving target. That's going to continue. This isn't a 1-year blip on the radar, as Sasha pointed out. This is going to continue. We are going to be tightening our belts unless somebody just drops a huge bucket of money into Ipswich for the schools. We're going to be facing this for the next couple of years. This isn't a one-off. And so while all of these cuts, I don't want to see any of them. But the reality is we have to look at how we're going to manage the budget. We went into this budget development in the hole $1.2 million. It's a big hole to fill. And it's only going to get deeper every year. We talk about trying to get out of the override business, right? The overrides have served us well for the last 2 overrides, so 10, 11 years now, I think. Right? They've served us well. If we're looking to move away from that, then I think we have to expect that there's going to be a significant tightening and reductions across the board as we move forward. Unless there's another way and unless the funding mechanism changes. That's the reality of it.
And I think also, yes, but like thinking creatively, thinking broad, like are there any big shifts we can make that are educationally sound, but will also help us with the budget?
Yes, I think some of the changes are going to take a couple of years to look at. I know, some of the things that we've talked about as a budget subcommittee is, looking at the co-teaching model. Is that the most effective model anymore? Expensive model. We talked about, reconfiguring grade levels, and this is coming from folks in the community, folks on this table. That's a possibility. That's not a 1-year fix that I could have said in this budget process. And next year we're going to a split configuration. We're going to put X grades here and Y grades there, and here's where the reductions are going to be. That's a multi-year process. So I think as time goes on, we can continue to have those conversations, but those are much bigger conversations.
I can add for, when we talk about next week's hearing, is it possible to get, I don't want to speak for Alicia, but can we have if it's a formal presentation or some information that's given to us that represents the teacher's input? Can that be a scheduled part of the agenda next week? So we have that?
I would say anything you can email us would be great. And then like the hearing will be the hearing, which is when people will come up and.
Okay,
yeah.
right. And then also the survey results, the information, just the raw information, if that can be said, doesn't have to be summarized. If we could just see all of them, that would be great.
And to what you said, Dr. Blake, about these sort of longer term things that could potentially provide some relief, I think lends credibility to the argument of what can we do now to mitigate those immediate risks and buy ourselves some time to get to those bigger things. And so the idea of just thinking creatively of what can we do, even if it's something, what you suggested, small little bits here and there, anything that we can do to mitigate the overall impact of what this bank of cuts looks like right now, I think would be a worthy endeavor, even if it doesn't bear fruit.
Any other comments on the FY27 budget?
We're going to get into this later, but I think communicating broadly and loudly on future challenges also is important, because engaging the creativity of the parents and the staff to start to think about ways that they can do things more effectively, efficiently, we've always done it this way probably isn't the right slogan to have. And so I think that the more we can communicate these issues, not pull information, but push it, keep pushing it loudly, I think will help us come to some creative solutions that we just can't see because we're not in the trenches.
Mhm.
I'll just say last night was the first night of multiple meetings throughout February, throughout March. So we have multiple reviews and discussions. And then for everybody that joined this evening in person, that's watching at home, that spoke, that emailed us, it's all appreciated. It goes in as part of the input to the overall conversations we're having. I just wanted to say that explicitly. We hear you, we see you, we're considering all of you as we have these conversations.
Absolutely. Yes.
Said. All right. Next item is school choice discussion and potential vote.
Leave in your packets this evening. We have the school choice data, school choice recommendations. There's a PDF in there that has the historic data for 25-26. And and then the other sheet is the school choice administrator recommendations. After our leadership, our admin team meeting the other day, we had discussions about looking at class sizes. Administrators are recommending opening 2 choice seats at grade 2 at Winthrop. At Doyon, grade 2, between 5 and 8 seats. Grade 4, 2 seats. At the middle school, looking at grade 6, opening up 8 seats so that they're at the beginning of the middle years. And then finally at the high school, opening up to 15 seats at grade 9.
Question on, I understand the, sort of capping it at grade 9, but why not grade 7 and 8? Just because that's before the full high school career.
That's what the administrators are recommending, given some of the history of the choice program.
Okay.
I have to say, I'm pleased to see that the middle school and high school opened up choice. And I think last year, and I've said this just about every year, I think 6th and 9th grade are the years to do that, because it might draw students from other districts that want, they've finished one, elementary school, let's do middle school, like something would attract them to Ipswich Middle School or Ipswich High School that they don't have in a district, that they'd be coming here to start at the beginning of that. So I think grade 6 and 9 are a really nice place to open choice seats. Where in the past few years, handful of years, they haven't opened them at all in the middle and high school. I think this is advantageous.
Why the change to open them this year? Strategically, what's different?
I think that they're doing what they can to look at hoping to get some choice students back, perhaps, and those are the grades that we feel are the most appropriate based on conversations at this table. They see that the choice funds are dwindling, and that's not a resource that are going to have access to very long.
I recall that in the recent years, it's been a negative financial impact of bringing in students at the middle school and high school. Right? So I bring that up because if the intention is to replenish the choice funds, it's backfiring. So I would not be in favor of opening up those seats in Old High School. If the goal is a financial one, it doesn't work for us. Right? Is that, if I'm remembering that correctly?
May I ask what you mean by a negative impact?
There's often a higher cost to bring some of the students in than we are gaining from the choice funds that are brought
So
into
we
the district.
certainly don't get from the state, which is how school choice is funded, the per pupil cost
Yeah.
that is equal to what it costs to educate a child in Ipswich. We certainly don't get that. We get between $5,000 and $12,000
Yeah.
per student, depending on what the student's needs may be. But there is a cap, and it does level out. Student by student, not everyone exceeds that. And I think, the state's philosophy around, around budgeting school choice is it's intended to sort of fill empty seats,
Right.
not necessarily empty rooms, right? So if there's a 14, 15, 16 kids in a classroom, can we make that 17 kids in a classroom without driving up the cost of running that classroom?
Yeah.
That's the intention. That's the legislative intention behind school choice.
My recollection from previous conversations is it does drive up the cost, and that's what I'm concerned about. And so if we're changing that, I'd like to see.
I think that has been
cost of that.
alleged. Yes.
Yeah, so I'd like to see that before.
I think the problem is if you look at the revolving account over the past few years, we're spending more than we're taking in.
Yeah.
And we used to have a robust choice account, and it's not as robust, and it was.
Yeah, my concern is this would actually accelerate that. Just as, we might bring it with 12,000 to add the student, but if we need to expend 20,000 because of whatever need is there,
So some of those,
spending more than we're getting, that's my concern.
some of those extraordinary needs for special education services are under law able to be billed back to the sending community. And we do that for extraordinary need.
And I think that's what I'd like to understand. That's what's come up previously, so I would just want to better understand that.
The other thing that isn't, available to us is to any school choice student that applies. It's sort of a blind application.
Oh, yes,
We cannot seek any profile information around that.
Absolutely,
student.
yeah.
So I'm hearing Sasha would like more information before taking a vote.
I think that sounds good. I think more information to find out with the cost, what we would get back.
Maybe Sasha and I can talk about it offline, but I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay.
To say what we're going to get back for a student that isn't even on our radar screen yet. So depending on the student, the state law will be between 5,000 is the minimum and 12,000 is the cap. So we would get back somewhere in that range depending on the student's need and what the state is prepared to fund based on that need. So the easiest, I don't mean easy as in truly easy, but the quickest of math is to say a school choice will bring with him or her $5,000.
What's the average cost of the student?
Well, the cost of educating a student in Ipswich is closer to 18,000. But that's my point. My point is, and I don't mean to sound like defending the state here, although I don't want to also beat them up when they don't deserve it. The purpose of school choice is if you've got 17 kids in the room and you can put 18, that doesn't change the cost of administrating that room. You're not getting a new teacher, you're not getting a new para, you're not buying a new desk. You're just you're helping fill empty seats that do not drive your cost for the administration, the education of that room.
What about transportation? Did it raise?
Transportation is on the student. There is do not pay to transfer school choice kids. We do not pay to bring them to school.
And in our current situation, I think we have a reduced class size, and that's why they're also considering it. I'm gonna make, you said class size, but we have on average 15 students per class in the high school is what John's report said last night. So it's not just we have one empty seat. We have a few empty seats. Yeah.
Except that actually that's a good point for Winthrop, right? Where we were just talking about there's a teacher at grade 5, it's the bubble year there, right? Where the class sizes are going to be going up. And here we see 5 seats open for grade 5 at Winthrop.
No.
Oh,
Grade
sorry.
2, only 2 seats.
2025, just kidding. Oh, no, wait.
The next page, it's a different sheet. Looking at current data. Document.
2 pages.
Five point C in the folder.
Thanks.
Winthrop's just 2 seats in grade 2.
I know.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's my first non-trick question. No, but generic,
No,
what is the philosophy of the maximum class?
What I would just want to know what document I'm looking at that's in our folder.
That governs that. So we try to stay within those guidelines. Off the top of my head, we try to keep them smaller. I'm sorry?
When the contract is 30 for kindergarten and
Try to keep,
kindergarten 20 or fewer, grade 1 25 or fewer, elementary 30 or fewer. But this isn't the contract. This is
It's not a policy.
We're well below
the
that.
policy is well below, and we are well below.
we try to keep them lower in the lower elementary levels and increase them.
But our educational philosophy is about 18 to 1, somewhere in that ballpark. Well, I'm just one, I mean, we talk about 16, 17 in the enrollment, and, you know, we have empty seats. How do we derive an empty seat if we don't have
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think one of the conversations that the budget subcommittee had any number of times, certainly going back to the fall in earnest, was to ask the administration to take a good look at class size as a concern.
You said it's a policy in here somewhere.
No.
Well, it's not in the materials, but it's not, must be in the school committee. Oh, we don't have a class size policy. Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about it later on. I'm just curious if we're gonna start offering seats, we have to have a cap where it becomes counterproductive to us, just as an educational environment.
Sure.
Historically, not that anybody can make predictions, like we've offered a lot of seats and people have not taken them. Right, okay. Yeah.
And just to point out the revolving account for choice back in, where does this start? 2023 was $1,750,000, and then it's gone down, and it went back up a little bit, but it's $1,162,000 and change. So $650,000 less than it was 3 years ago. It is a significant point of revenue, and then we make more when an elementary school student comes in because it's assume they'll be here for the duration, and you get the choice every year.
Are you looking for a motion at this point, or no?
I guess to answer, I don't know, it sounds like, I'm not
So
sure.
maybe we can,
Yeah,
I mean, I want to get you what you want, but I need to,
Yeah, to clarify what date I'm looking for, and we can bring that back to the next school committee meeting.
Okay, but I'm just curious, like, overall, when you see the word school choice, are you anticipating a loss, or overall you think it is a healthy move for the budget? Is that too much?
who are you asking?
Crystal
That's,
ball?
yeah, that's
Okay,
the
I was trying
intention
to
of
see
the
if I could-
follow-up. Yeah,
Okay.
rather than speculating. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it sounds, I'm hearing Sasha would like to hold.
Shove it to next week.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Not
Next week is just a
Yeah.
public hearing.
Oh, it's
Next
just
time.
yeah.
the next time we have a full meeting.
To get in the way
March
of anything
meeting.
timeline wise.
Nope.
No.
Right. Okay, good question though. All right. Next, actually, before we're gonna do the capital plan, but just keeping my eye on the time. Jack, did you want to pop in and do your high school report? It's up to you. You can go now or after capital. Let's hear it. Shade up.
Well, I guess not a lot.
Why is it in last night's folder?
I'll keep it very brief because this is long, but it's going pretty good. Look forward to winter break coming up. We sent out the survey to the elementary school students.
Good.
I haven't gone through that yet. I'm going to wait because it was only at the beginning of this week to get some more responses from that. And then once I have that, I'll share that with you all. And that's about it, really.
Awesome. Great to hear. Any questions for Jack?
It's all right. It's a good thing.
Good thing.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay. All right. So now we're back up to the 5-year capital plan update.
So, earlier, we had submitted approximately $2.6 million. I'm gonna find my own sheet here. In capital requests, given all the
Sorry, this
issues
is on
we've been
paper.
facing.
Oh, thanks.
It's nice big paper, which is either an advantage or a disadvantage, depending on one's point of view, but it's.
The bottom line is what we submitted and what
Oh,
we're
sorry.
going to be allocated is, there's a significant difference. The town has faced a number of issues, some of which have had immediate budget impact. Some of it has had significant impact on the free cash that's used to support the 5-year capital plan. So in the, what's orange on your page, for FY '27, were all the asks for the capital plan for next year, which amounted to 2.6 million, a little over 2.6 million. My conversations, and the town hasn't done a whole lot on their side with this, but I was told to give the town manager our top priorities to total about 900,000. So you can see that we have the boiler replacement at the middle school, high school. We had one slated for next year and one for 2 years for FY '29. That's certainly a priority. Right now, we have boiler number 2 down again with another leak. We're hoping that we can hobble along till February vacation to be able to make that repair, because we have to take the whole heating system down again. And then certainly with losing 3 days of school last week with at Doyon, we also had a boiler scheduled to be replaced next year there to the tune of 300,000. Again, you know, with those two pieces are mission critical to continue on. What you also see, which I have concerns about, is our IT budget. While we fund it in our operating budget every year, we also rely quite heavily on the town capital plan for improvements to our IT equipment, hardware, and it's on a cycle. And so this year, for FY '27, there was $210,000 that was earmarked. Obviously, 480 and 300, another 210 is too much. And we have a number of these other projects that we need to fund, or we should be funding as well. So we're trying to look at Can we get some money for technology? I'm going to say keep, but essentially for the tech department out of that. As well as some of the other things that are on cycles. As you recall, last year we started the locker replacements at the middle school. That's $35,000. That was scheduled for 3 years in a row. They're falling off the walls.
Why don't we just use the ones from the high school?
They don't fit. I know, but they don't fit, no. We went down that road already. The other thing, we talked about exhaust fan replacements. That's for next year and the year after. Cyclical stuff. I think those were the cyclical items that we needed to sort of put at the top of the list. But there isn't much money. If we find that the town has more money for capital, then we'll go back and we'll prioritize the rest of the list and see where we land. But knowing full well, the 5-year capital plan is great. It never gets fully funded. Right? I'm close in some years past, but it's never been 100% fully funded. But at least I think this year we've done a great job of identifying all of the projects now. So, the Jack Welch Stadium field house is on there. The turf, the carpet at the turf field is on there. There's a number of different things in here for to upgrade our athletic facilities, as well as some things that we know we need and want to improve. So at least having them identified, if they need to get pushed out, we can push them out, and we do reprioritize everything every year, depending. I think it was a mistake last year when the Noresco conversations were happening and we didn't replace at least one of the boilers. That got pulled out of the budget, out of the capital plan. And so it wasn't funded at town meeting. And look at the shape that we're in now.
Questions, comments on the capital plan?
I'm sorry if we've already said this, but so the orange column, that's the cost. And then, like, for example, the turf field, it's $800,000. And then next to it, year two, 90,000.
Yep. So the thought process behind that was we know that the turf field, in particular the carpet, is nearing the end of its useful life. When capital projects are approved, we have 2 years to utilize the money. So the thought process was to ask for the $800,000 to replace the carpet, and then the $90,000 the year after, so that over the next 3 years, we would be able to replace the turf field as well as resurface the track.
Okay.
That also needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the track would get damaged as a result of the work being done on the field.
Great.
So when is that going to get done if we can't fund it this year? It's still, there's a hope.
Hopefully we push it out and reassess next year and try to get it funded next year.
One of the things that could happen when we met with the town manager on this, and he was very candid in his answer, but we could, look at doing what was done for the elementary roofs and this building by not paying for it through capital expenditures, but by bonding it. But then what that's going to do is that's going to give back to our budget the cost of paying that debt every year. So do we wait to get it out of capital year and expend the money all at once, or do we bond it and doing like we just talked earlier tonight, right? We 17% increase to fixed cost to pay for the roofs that we had done 2 years ago.
How many years do
That
we
is an
have?
option.
Down the bond out of the capital.
No, because see, capital isn't,
Actually, you can't.
it's free cash. There's not a, we call it capital. I say we, the town calls it capital, but there's not a line that says that. It's just a combination of numerous available sources.
How many years do we have to pay for the roof?
10?
And the turf field will not last another 10.
An example of all these projects coming to a
I'm
head.
sorry? It's already nearing the end of life.
That separates the locations.
I think it's 10 or 11 years old now. And so I don't want to say we're on borrowed time with it, but it's, we have to.
Go on a list.
Yeah, it needs to be on a list, and we have the impact testing done, and we keep up with all the legal requirements of it, and when they come in and look at it, they say it's still in very good shape, but is out in the elements, and we've had a couple of different issues with it over the last couple of years where we've had to make repairs and things. Yeah. It could very well reach a point where we can't play on it. I mean, that's the reality of it. It'll get to the point where it doesn't pass the impact testing, and MIA will say you can't play games on it.
I think one of the things, this year that we were able to do, in the course of the last year to physically create this plan at this time is to really do some assessment over the high school in particular, right? I mean, we're doing, or recommending to do what is barely necessary and appropriate until there's a new plan for the 2 elementary schools with regard to what the new construction may or may not be. But our new high school is 26 years old. And it's beginning to show that. 27 years, sorry.
Opened in 99.
So, the next round of years are going to be noticeable for cost, physical infrastructure, building envelope costs for this building.
Well, and I don't think we can be loud enough about what we're talking about here is general maintenance, right? Like if we want to ever be able to turn our attention to, technology, STEAM, like all of that stuff at the middle school, high school level, we can't begin to dream and talk about that if we're just talking about building maintenance. Yeah.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not.
We have spent millions of dollars over the last 7 years that.
I think there's always criticism about, are the buildings being maintained, Like, I think we have very good documentation of knowing what we need to do. It's a funding issue, and that 7 of us don't personally fund it. So I think we need to get that message in the community as well.
I would agree, because it's a popular narrative that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
At least, I don't know, it's kind of dangerous to read the comment section of Facebook, but there seems to be that narrative that no one's maintaining these places, and it was like, only so much you can do, number one, but they are, at least in my short time here. But
And then want to do more, but
Right.
here we are.
Well, yeah, and those decisions are made at town meeting. That's a community-wide decision.
Yeah.
There's, yeah, it's like you said, it's not that.
And unfortunately, in many cases, we're victims, we're survivors of poor past decisions. And I go back to this building. When this building was built, there were, from my understanding of the history of it, there were issues from the get-go. And that's why we have a lot of the ventilation issues now, because of how the construction was done back then. That's why we have, we have areas of the building that had no insulation for years. We had frozen pipes and we had, so we've been playing catch-up baseball for years to try to get the building where it should have been in the first place. When you have builders that go bankrupt and walk off the job, we're not getting a high-quality product to begin with. And so we're constantly chasing after this.
It's townwide.
And it is,
Yeah.
it is.
Drive
And
down
that's why there's
High
a
Street.
strategic plan for the town that has, millions and millions of dollars on it, things that need to be suddenly addressed.
I will say, I feel like we're at a turning point, at least with the schools, that we have this facilities director, like, this is what maintenance looks like. And we're playing catch-up, but what we don't want is this school in another 20 years to be in the condition that our two elementary schools are in. And I feel like Rob Furtado, it's expensive, but you have to do it. And
Our next item, I guess, anybody have any final comments on that? Okay. I guess I will just say I'm pleased. I feel like we've gotten a couple of looks at this. I know in the past, the timeline hasn't lined up so well, so I think we all appreciate being able to have these conversations. So the next
We
item.
heard you last year.
Great. So we are going to talk about the athletic policy, but I'm wondering if anybody would like to take a little break or if you want to keep rolling.
wouldn't mind a little break.
I just took mine illegally, so.
It's all you. You want a break? All right. Anybody opposed to taking a break?
I'm opposed
Okay.
to taking
All
a
right.
break.
Let's just recess for, about 5 minutes or so until we call back to order when we're all back together.
we're back in.
I think we're back. He was waiting for you to sit. I
Oh,
think.
okay.
So let's get rolling. All right, so we're calling back to order at 9:10, and we are on the draft athletic policy review.
All right, so I'll give you a little history. Few years back, well, several years back, there was an athletic subcommittee formed, I believe, for the creation of the turf field. When 4 years ago now, when I entered school committee, I was put on the athletic subcommittee enthusiastically. And what it had become, and traditionally our subcommittees are made up of 3 school committee members, obviously superintendent, and as a subcommittee, you're 3 voting members of the school committee. And it was just, our athletic subcommittee at the time was not functioning as a regular subcommittee. It was just kind of the athletic director reporting in. There were some students on it as well, but there wasn't real like a voting or decision making. It was just kind of like a quarterly, or almost like, yeah, maybe quarterly or every sports season reporting in on the season. So I started to say to Dr. Blake, how does this work? What's going on here? And it just doesn't seem effective. So, but then Dr. Blake created was an athletic advisory board and included many kind of sports divisions in town, like youth travel, the YMCA, coach representatives from Little League, and then representatives from each school, I believe, but it was very large. Came out, blazing with a lot of energy, and still kind of felt like almost too big. Like, what are we doing? So I believe with still a need for some athletic support, and some school committee, what's the word I'm looking for?
Guidance?
Guidance, thank you. We've formed an athletic policy working group last year to see if we could, through policy, because that's what we do, policy and budget, create better guidance for athletics. So myself, Matt, and Sasha were on the athletic policy working group. And what we've come up with are 2 policies that for your review tonight, and hoping to get some input and ultimately approval for that we would hope to better guide us through athletics in Ipswich. There's 2, and I think I'll start with an athletic subcommittee policy that we're hoping to implement, and it's in your folder. And I can read it out loud, but the mission is somewhat clear, but this would allow for the school committee to meet regularly throughout the school year with the athletic director, an administrator from the middle school, and the principal from the high school to make and guide decisions based on budget and policy in athletics. So we label it BDF-A. Our section of our policy manual, section B, is board governance and operations. And it would fall under advisory committees to the school committee.
I'm reading, I think. I just asked two questions.
Mhm.
Evaluation.
Are you looking at,
I'm at the athletics and coaching draft, is that not the one that?
That's a
Yep.
different document.
It's a different one, okay.
yep, so that's next.
Rookie mistake right there.
Right. Short answer is the athletic director.
Okay.
Good news is 3 years later, you'll still be doing the same things.
Well, you know, is there 360 feedback from, you know, involved? Oh, wait.
Okay, so you're looking for comments on this?
Yes, comments, questions.
Okay. I guess Matt and Sasha are already in the room. Do you have anything to add or share about this?
No, I think we thought feedback from the greater group, and if need be, pulling it back into policy next week if there were further questions. I think that was kind of our thinking, but.
Ely and Paul, do you have comments?
I have not reviewed this, to be honest, so I would love time to read it and maybe bring it into policy. I mean, I trust you all, and we could try not to just do the rubber stamp thing. So, if it's okay to bring it into next
Well,
policy.
let's kind of see where we land, what direction we want to take with how to get these to the next step. I have some comments. So, I guess I thought we were starting with the other
Oh, sorry.
version. That's okay. I should have said that, but I have some comments about that I think will link with this. I very much like the idea of having some sort of group, and I know there's been, you said, some trial and error in finding what that group is. My concern is having that group specifically be 3 school committee members. Um, I, I'm, I just, it. I found a couple other districts that have it, but it's pretty unique for a school committee to have a athletic subcommittee. And I just, well, our authority is budget and policy, and that's great authority. I think that to have impact, a group could be more advisory to the superintendent. And so if we were to make a group that's advisory to the superintendent, I liken it similar to like the wellness committee, which is one school committee member, but then other key stakeholders. And I think you could have a policy that picked out who those people are, and you would have like different. You wouldn't. Again, it's just different ways of looking at it. You wouldn't have to stay in the school committee lane. You could certainly, you would just be advisory, but I think you could be more directly advisory than needing to stay in the school committee lane. So I think it'd be more effective to have it that way. Let me see what else I had here. Anyway, that's my overall commentary on that, is having a group, but who should be on that group, and what's the best organization of that group.
When we started this, we had a couple, I don't want to call it a listening session, but we had like a public session for people to come and talk to us about their experience with athletics. And we also had just citizens come to the meetings that wanted to give input into athletic policy. And I think what we landed on was that so many people want to be involved, and so many people, it's kind of what happened when there was an advisory board. It started off with like 15, 16 people in the room because it was from everywhere in town. And when I called the MASC to ask about having an athletic subcommittee and staying in our lane and how to be effective. And she advised that in order to be a subcommittee, it would be 3 school committee members. I told her some of the issues that we were dealing with, and subcommittee versus working group versus, we didn't talk about task force, but really the only categories we talked about were subcommittee versus working group. And she said, as long as you tie it back to budget and policy, that this was kind of the cleanest way to do it, because it still leaves, I think you can read the last sentence, superintendent or designee is responsible to administer the athletic programs. And I think what we've learned through hearing feedback from family experience, but also doing the budget, is that a lot of what the athletic, I want to say department, but in Ipswich, the athletic department needs is feedback on budget and where money sits and how to support them best. I think requires school committee vote or support to be able to come back to the full body.
So I think athletics was covered in budget subcommittee, so there's not a place to talk about the athletic budget. I hear what you're saying about, well, we don't want 15 people, but you could put in your policy, like, okay, call it a task force, whatever you want to name it. If you were to, I'm just suggesting, if you were to go a different route that's not subcommittee, because they were going to have an athletic, like, the school committee expects the superintendent to have an athletic task force. I'm just making this up. That task force shall consist of one school committee member, superintendent, athletic director, and then XY, like you get to pick what that group is, like, or not you, but we as the school committee would have a policy that says exactly who's on it. Could always change it, but we would set those parameters. And then, and I know you said you've heard a lot of, so I hear the budget piece. I think it's a concern, but I do wonder if we could tackle that in a committee that's already in existence. I guess beyond that, like, what would a typical agenda be for this subcommittee, and how would it consistently be in our lanes?
Let me pull up what Sasha wrote in our last.
Two specific use cases that we used when we were talking about the format for this were the co-ops. Am I saying that right? I always want to say the club teams, but co-ops and athletic fees. Like those felt like squarely in school committee's lane, more so than if it was a more open group. And then your point about the attendees, if the attendees are the same between the two, we had a hard time, or at least I had a hard time, but we couldn't come up with good tangible reasons why one was effectively better than the other. And so, because we said the intention is things that we purely felt in school committee, make it a subcommittee like the other ones. I don't personally feel incredibly strongly one towards the other. I feel like we've landed in a certain place. We've been trying to stand it up since October. For me, it's a little more biased to putting something in place. It doesn't work. We feel like it's not effective. You can disband it and move to a working group next year. I'd be in favor of starting something, though.
When you say it was co-ops and fees, okay. So this is where it ties to the other policy you had, and maybe you were looking to get more specific, but like I pulled up some other policies, and like Amesbury talks about user fees. I don't know if I saw one specifically about co-ops, but again, I'm gonna kind of, sorry to shift here a little bit, but I'm wondering, do you need a group that constantly shifts and monitors, or can we have an athletic policy that says, like, our policy on co-ops is X, or our policy on user fees is that they'll be assessed by the school committee annually? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do we need a group to do that in real time, or can we just set a policy? Not that you can't review that policy and update it as needed, but can it all live in the policy and then be carried out operationally? And if there's a group, it would not need to be a school committee group. And I think it would be, again, I do think it would almost be more efficient to not be a school committee group.
On the flip side of that, and I may be speaking out of turn, you might be able to shed more light on this, but my sense is the way things are kind of shaping out with declining enrollment, issues around club teams, stuff like that, that co-ops may be more of a model that a lot of districts, including ours, may be moving towards. Right? And I could be making that up, but that's just a sense that I'm getting. And so there is something to be said about a group that kind of has its foundations in this, dealing with those questions first before it kind of comes to a larger body. Like Sasha, I don't have a sort of a strong feeling on what we call this thing, but I do think there is something to be said about it. There is a place for it.
I would add to that, and that we get more public comment and emails about athletics than anything else. I think the weight of that and the interest of our parents and students, I think to your point of like, we can adjust, I think something durable is in our benefit as it is the Ipswich school families.
Yeah. And I'm not saying not to have something durable, just not, like, let's put it this way. If you had a group that's advisory to Dr. Blake, like if we set the policy, like it's tricky that we can't email each other, right? I'm just going to say it. Like you have a group that could get work done almost quicker. Like that's one of the benefits, I think, to having an outside group that follows the policy that is set at the school committee level. And again, when we go to the other one, I have some other ideas that what could potentially be included, but I guess this group, like who should be in the group? I think that's the question I have. And if it's not, and should it be school committee or otherwise? Not, and again, I think it could have a school committee member on it, but just not a full school committee group.
So I like what you're saying about you're trying to get it to be the most effective group. I recently met with John Mitchell and our athletic director, Tom Gallagher, to talk about some other athletic needs. Dr. Blake knows about this, it wasn't, but it always comes down to budget. And I asked them, and they both attended a couple of our meetings, but when we talked about like where we were landing with this, they both looked at each other and said, it would be so nice to have that group together so that it's not just us two making decisions. And Tom Gallagher actually said, I would welcome this. Periodic meetings, get this feedback. So I think, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think the wellness policy, because it's kind of mapped out, right? It's following state and federal mandates of what is needed. This is an Ipswich needs this now. And when I called the MASC to talk about how do I do this, it's kind of a different subcommittee, she said, you can, every July or every year when you reestablish members of your subcommittee, you could also reestablish goals. So it could be called your subcommittee because we talked about the difference being the working group is a temporary function of, getting something accomplished. But she said it doesn't have to be a working group. It can be a subcommittee. And every year you reestablish what needs to be done this year and the goals of the committee. So I think out of the gate, there's big issues about participation, co-op teams, fees, budgets, FEFs, equipment, and who's paying for what. And I hesitate to bring in too many people. And I just want to kind of get it done and support athletics through a budget that the athletic director and the principal and the middle school principal or administrator or principal say, this is what we want to do and this is what we need. And these are our budgets. Like this, it's a very budget driven discussion. So I feel like, and I also said to John Mitchell, well, what about having students? I know that students like to be involved in this. And he said, well, they could be through surveys or through his position with the high school council. He said we could easily bring in student input when needed on that subcommittee.
Can I ask a procedural question? How often do we revisit the subcommittees? Like where we would say, if maybe there's a lot of front loading that needs to happen, right? And that's over a 3-year period or whatever you want to throw at that. And then once we get to a place where it's like, okay, we've accomplished this. How much of it is we've got this sorted out? We've got a framework in place, and now it's just more maintenance or whatever. If a subcommittee is needed now, then in however long can we say, okay, we don't need this now because we have that foundation or framework in place? Is that, how often do we revisit them?
I think like currently, communications budget policy, like the subcommittees that we have are like very standard, I guess if with what you're suggesting, like, okay, like, and maybe this is where you're thinking, and I don't want to get into semantics, but like, is it an athletic, okay, not athletic policy, but the athletic working group with the understanding that's, we don't expect it to be around maybe in 10 years because the goal is to get it up and running, but to have it as a working group that is likely several years if the intent is to have several school committee members on it.
Are the things that you're highlighting things that feel like that's long-term maintenance, that's something that isn't really like after X amount of time, we're going to have a framework in place? This is like, these are things that we would need to look at all the time. Or like you're saying, the budgetary things, could those roll into budget subcommittee once they're in a state of maintenance? Do you know what, I don't know the things that you're highlighting otherwise. If
I do
just thinking about
imagine that
disbandment.
I do imagine that after, call it a school year, that it could reevaluate goals and see what's needed, and possibly it's not needed.
I really like the idea of the goals because I think we're looking at this now. When I try to circle up, I think where we landed on the goals was this year was like, okay, now how do we take these and parse them out a bit within the subcommittees and hold ourselves accountable and make sure we're doing what we're saying we're going to do. So it feels a little bit like this backwards process now, where some of that, it would have been nice to have thought about that a little more, I think, coming into it, right? Where I think that we've established a good framework, but now we have to kind of back into it, which isn't bad, but it would be nice moving forward for us to know, okay, before operation meets at the beginning of the year, each of the subcommittees are going to do that. So not just for this purpose, but more broadly, those groups would meet, send that information to operations, and that could be incorporated in a way that is more intentional around, how are we actually getting after this stuff? So I really like the idea of that, however that shakes out, subcommittee, working group, whatever. But I think that that's not just applicable here. We should be thinking about it.
So one example that that I think would be an agenda item and a kind of a constant would be, we have students that are 8th graders, and they're either choicing out. We're in a situation where we have people choicing out for athletics to other districts, or they're deciding to apply to either Whittier or Essex Tech or private schools for athletics. And I think that's an issue that would be constantly on the agenda to say, okay, where are we this year? And quite frankly, what improvements do we need to make to get kids to stay? And that's kind of where I fall with this, the importance of this. What do we need to do with Ipswich athletics to get kids to stay? And I think that would be the main purpose of the members of this subcommittee, call it whatever, task force, but keeping kids, Ipswich kids in Ipswich based on athletics, and what do we need to do to our athletic program from a funding, budgetary standpoint, and possibly policy to change it so that kids stay. That's like the overarching goal of bringing these people together.
Hopeful that you called it like that.
So I'm not sure like where to go from here. Do you want to take this to policy?
Well, do you want to do your other one?
Yeah, so
And then we can figure out how to on it.
Yep. Hold on. So let's call it policy GCAAD, athletics and coaching. So in looking around and getting feedback, a lot of the feedback we get is the experience of students on teams and the coaches that are hired. In looking around, we found, and this was an Amesbury policy, in their policy manual, this is basically taken straight from their policy manual, and we would propose that it goes in section G, which is under personnel. And as we stated earlier, our athletic coaches, even at the sub-varsity level, are part of the collective bargaining unit. And there was nothing in our policy manual regarding coaches and hiring. However, one challenge with athletics, there's about 5 different handbooks that mention athletics. We have our Ipswich High School parent-student handbook that pretty much just mentions the teams available in the high school. There's the coach's handbook that has something similar to this. Basically, they have to be CPR trained and core reporting and finding, but this is a little bit more structure to what is in our coaching handbook. Then there's the MIAA, there's the CAL handbook, and then there's the student guardian handbook that describes it's the athletic handbook that families sign off on for participation. But we don't have anything this structured for hiring coaches.
If I can jump in here for just a second, there's a discrepancy in here that I think we need to clean up that I just realized when I sat down with Tom on Monday morning to go over this. In paragraph 4, it says all coaching positions will have an annual evaluation within a month after the season ends. All coaching positions will remain filled contingent upon satisfactory evaluation and recommendation of the athletic director, building principal, and/or designee. But then in number 6, it says all coaching positions will be posted at the end of the playing season. And the selection process of head coaches will be completed within 2 months of posting. So that sounds contradictory. Are coaches going to are all coaches going to have to reapply for their jobs every year, according to this?
What do we do now? What's listed in 4?
They stay, what's listed in 4 is what happens.
Maybe all open coaching positions is
single word.
That's the intent.
Yeah, I'm blanking on, did we discuss that? I don't know that we had a lot of discussion on this piece. It was more on the policy. I think this in large part was lifted from
Amesbury.
Yeah. I don't, I don't know factually, but I don't imagine that they post all of their. I mean, assuming what was described in 4 is working and it's what we do, to repost it every single time, it seems like an administrative nightmare.
Amesbury actually says that as well.
I was just trying to find it.
Right, that's what I said. I think we lifted it pretty much from Amesbury.
I think, yeah, they probably missed the word, right?
Yeah, that's the intention of it. The addition there, I think, is fine. The addition that open vacated, yeah, that's fine. That's the spirit of it. If you read the flow of the 4, then 5, then 6. So yeah, that's a better clarification.
I like having the open or vacated in there, but I do think that number 6 belongs.
Questions or comments? I have some. I like this. Sorry.
You are talking to the policy person, right?
Yeah, exactly. I can tell.
Jam. I like this, and I like, that Amesbury had it, but I wonder, talking about catering it to Ipswich, like what are, and it still has to be pretty high level because it's a policy, but like what are we seeing that we can address in the policy? Like, I'll use the fees example. Like, do you want to put something in here about how fees are assessed? Do we have, I don't even know, I have no idea how fees are assessed, like, can that go in there? Do you want to put any hopes and dreams on coaches? Like, we are, especially, I don't know the words, it's getting late, but yeah, but um, coach licensure is appreciated. I don't know, like,
They have to have the certifications down in the last paragraph. That's part of it already.
no, like sport specific. Like a grassroots soccer license.
Oh,
Like, you know what I mean? Again, I
don't even know.
I don't know. I get this. I'm just, going nuts here. But,
So
go ahead.
I like stuff like that. I don't know that it belongs in here. I ran this by two coaches, not at Ipswich, but college level or coaches, and they both said this is exactly it.
I guess what is it saying that we don't already do or have? Is it anything different? Because it's a real opportunity if we want to, have something directional. We could include it. So, sorry, that was a question and a statement.
Can I pile on to that a bit with, like, Jen, when you're outlining all the different things that already exist, does this stand separately from that, or would this feed those? I mean, are there other things that we can compare? Like, I'm thinking about, and this was my very, very first meeting, but Mr. Mitchell made a presentation when they were making handbook changes, and it was the implementation of the personal devices and So they were coming to us for approval on that handbook change. So I don't know how much our policy guides those conversations, or does it go the other way? Like, if they have something in their handbook, do we make sure that we have a policy? I guess it's order of operations, but are there other things within all those other documents that you're talking about that we need to take into consideration? And like, which one fuels?
So you could put in this document, I'm not saying I necessarily believe, but like, for example, like the school committee will review this handbook, this handbook, this handbook annually or whatever, like if that was a goal of the athletic subcommittee, but that's how you would tie it. You could tie it together that way.
You think putting it in that policy?
Yeah, that says the school committee, these are just examples. I don't know enough to
Do
know
we
if these are
have
right.
that
but-
in place currently for like the handbook or other
Yes,
things?
the
Okay,
handbook, yes.
So to be consistent with, okay.
You could say, we will review, and you listed off all those different documents, but school committee will review those annually. The school committee will assess athletic fees or school committee will receive a presentation on participation. That would be perhaps how we could get, make it Ipswich specific and use policy to get to an end that we want to be at.
So just thinking through the layers. So to answer your first question, Haley, this particular coaching policy, the only place we mention coaches is in the coaches handbook, and it's called Ipswich High School Athletic Department Coaches Handbook and Expectations. So it's given to an employee. There's no mention of coaches other than that. So I do think there's a place for this as it's written in front of you. And then I like what you're saying, and if you go to our policy manual now, we have interscholastic athletics, policy JJIB. It's very basic, and it's what most schools have. I do think that separate from subcommittee or whatever we're going to call it, which I think is very much needed, and separate from having a coaching hiring policy, we can take that small little, it's kind of like a boilerplate policy, and add in the review of the manuals by the school committee.
Mhm.
And we did not do that in this.
Yeah.
How often do those change, those manuals? Do we know?
We've never reviewed
Yeah,
them.
Yeah. Because I'm just wondering too, is that like the policy might not need to be annual, right? Policy could read as updated when a change is made,
Mhm.
which may not be happening that often. Changes.
20 years, and then we're like, oh, that's
Right.
No, it's good to have things on some sort of cycle, even if
Yeah.
you don't make changes, to just review.
Just to look at. Yeah, that's true.
And so the student athlete handbook, they at least have to change the number on it every year. 'Cause it's the 2025-26 school year. And it does go over like academic eligibility, chemical health policy, physical exams, attendance, and like how they relate to participating in sports. And then it has to get signed off on. So this handbook is probably the most changed or updated annually document, if there's an update to go into it. But I think that's something the subcommittee can also align with, is right now, school committee doesn't really look at this other than if there's change at the high school level and they come to us.
For that, I don't remember ever reviewing that.
I think if there were a change,
No, I don't.
I don't know, I could be wrong.
But that's why a policy would be helpful.
Yeah.
So that we do know.
So do you suggest
Do people want more time to kind of like marinate on this and dig into it and give feedback? Or
I will say, I think it's important to Sasha's point, like, I don't care what we call it. I like subcommittee because I feel like it gives us a little bit more of a job to do. But I think we need to get started. There's a lot going on, and I'm anxious about knowing some answers and some budget-related questions that will enhance and improve the athletic department to move forward.
Yeah, I love that, and I don't disagree, but like, I hear there's a lot of work. I'd love to see that in a policy if it's like, if the policy says a subcommittee of the school committee will review grants or, like, I know there's a lot of feedback and there's a lot to do, but like, how can we have a policy that guides us? Um, yeah, I don't know. Again, looking at different districts, not that we want to do all of these, but I think Amesbury had a section on cuts, or they had a separate policy on cuts. I don't know if we need one, but I'm just saying, like, those are different ideas that districts have had. Ludlow had what they will cover in their operating budget. Interesting concept. Amesbury, Mendon, Upton, and Andover had fees. I could go on, but something about athletic awards. Lexington, do you have practice on a holiday, right? Like, just ideas, not that we need to cover all of them, but what do we need in Ipswich that this is a great chance, and we don't, we can tweak it as many times as we want, but if we're going to approve it, like, we can get it to a good place, which I guess.
Those are two separate things. There's the policy for the subcommittee, and then separately, there's the athletics and coaching policy.
Right.
We could separate the discussion on the two of those. We don't have to approve both of those tonight, or we can move forward differently with each of those.
True.
The examples you gave were for more athletics and coaching, not the subcommittee.
Yep. I mean, you could also put the subcommittee in a bigger athletic policy, or if you want to have two, whatever.
Well, and also, but as a working group now, you guys are actively meeting and working, right? So like, because I think I was just getting the goals, like we have till June or the goal says June to firm up the policy. But in the meantime, it's not like the buck stopped. Like, you guys could continue to work on the initiatives that you're pursuing. Or not. Maybe not.
Yeah, we as a working group have not made it a goal to, we would like it to be a goal to meet to increase participation and better the athletic experience. But that was not the mission of the working group. It was to do that through policy.
Yeah, I understand.
I guess I feel like I have a lot of comments. I'm not hearing other people have comments. Well, I guess you.
No, I mean, I don't have I hear you saying you want to move things along. I don't know how to help.
When's our next meeting after our meeting?
The
26.
26, yeah.
I mean, if we postponed it to the 26th, and people had ample time to give us the feedback, we worked on it, tried to meet, I don't know if we can meet one more time between now and then, but and approved it on that day, we could hit the ground running, form it real quick, and be up and running by March. You think that's too slow?
No, I think.
And one of the things we did that I thought was an important, Joel, thing I'm struggling with, I guess, working groups, is, members' inputs, outputs, where does that output go? And I'm kind of confused what the output is.
Mm.
So it was a really helpful drill for us when we're establishing something, because everybody's time is valuable. What are the people who are coming in? What do they bring to it? What do they compile? And what do we do with the thing that comes out of that working group? I probably need to understand. I'm 100% on board with athletics. I mean, I think there's part of our triad of education, moral, and physical, right? But I just don't understand what this thing will do.
I would simply ask, what is it that the proposed subcommittee would do that we can't do now through another avenue?
Do what?
That we can't do now through another avenue? Like what, so we name a subcommittee tonight, what's gonna change tomorrow in terms of what that subcommittee can do now versus, or tomorrow versus right this minute? Right?
I think part of it is that the reason we're having this conversation is because, as Sasha said, we get more emails about athletics and problems with athletics than most topics.
Mhm.
And I think we need to work in an organized fashion with our principals and our athletic director to see what is needed to fund or align the athletic experience. And if it was already being done, we wouldn't be having this discussion, and it's not being done. I'm trying really hard to have discussions, but I feel like getting those people aforementioned in the room to move athletics forward and see what is needed, keep students in Ipswich and having a good athletic experience is important.
What
If it
would
takes a subcommittee that, and if it doesn't work, it won't work, and next year we dissolve it. But I feel like we need to give this a try now.
Can I
To
make
add to that, you know, the thing that I sort of take my guidance from the pain, you know, working group with the pain group, whatever.
Effie.
Thank you. We haven't met this year, right? But, you know, we spent the whole first year on that trying to understand the problem, right? And we sort of became somewhat experts in that, and to the point where we could then really kind of grapple with the minutia of it all. And I have, you know, my kids are young, so they're not in high school athletics. So I don't fully understand I don't even know what I don't know, right? And I think there's a changing landscape out there too that maybe we're not focusing on. You know, what is happening outside of the walls of Ipswich that are changing athletics. And so whether it's a working group or subcommittee, again, that's not. But that could be one thing that we really try to understand and bring back to the main committee, is that these people who are on it, whoever's on it, understand the problems, right? And then can really articulate them to everybody else and address those problems. I think that's the value in it if we decide to go down that road.
Can I make suggestion for maybe where to take that and combining like all of the feedback that's been given here is if as a group you guys could, instead of hopping to policy, not hopping, but like as an interim measure, could you go back and kind of come up with maybe two things? One, sort of like the high level goals driven by outcomes. Like what are we, you know, working backwards from like, what do we want to see come out of this? And then like, so what would our goals be to get us there as one sort of standalone piece? And then perhaps, or it's like an action plan, right? Like 3 years. So year one is assessment, right? Year two is whatever maybe it is getting to an actual policy, and then 3 is implementation, or maybe it's longer than that, whatever it might look like, but some kind of a roadmap for the high level goals, and then like, how are we going to get there? What's it going to look like? That might be helpful to see, to be able to kind of drive at some of, again, what does it look like in
I would
action?
love to be a part of that. I mean, I would hop on that in a second. You know, I have 2 kids in the system right now, taking advantage of it, and I have thoughts. You know, I know we've already have 3 people on it, so I don't.
Well, we'd still love your input, I think, on that, however that shakes out.
But Haley, I don't disagree with anything you said, but isn't that those goals would be established within the committee that I'm trying to form?
Yeah.
So you're not wrong, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to sit down with those people and say, what are our goals? How are we going to get there? How long is it going to take? Okay, let's map it out. But right now that doesn't exist. So I'm trying to make it exist. So where do we go? And I think what Diana's saying, and I like what Diana's saying, like there's different sections and we have this interscholastic athletic section that's kind of bland. And we can then put in there, and maybe that's the answer. We can come back in 2 weeks. You guys can give us a little bit more feedback. Or not 2 weeks, the 26th. And we can add to the policy JJIB, interscholastic sports. This is how the school committee, like we're having a subcommittee that reviews this and these handbooks and kind of details what the school committee is doing with athletics by way of subcommittee. It's done in the subcommittee and brought back to the school. Does that sound right?
And the way I understood, it almost sound like we're putting a governance structure on top of the athletic director from the school or committee? Because
We were very careful not to do that because we advise, so Dr. Blake, the superintendent, advises the principal, who advises the athletic director. We do not advise the athletic director.
Except that's what this working group seems to be orienting towards, right? I mean, because you're talking about identifying problems, having the committee talk. I think having a deliberative body that talks about things is great. I just wonder if,
So
I think
that's
the nature of the topics would be district-wide and strategic, not operational. So for example, the co-op programs, not should you have a JV girls basketball team?
okay.
And what would that look like? Right. I think that, so it is an important point. That would need to be part of, and we would need to make sure that that's part of both the mandate and effectively what's happening month over month.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you said it better than I did, Paul. Those were my concerns too. But again, going back to who's on the group, you would, again, a group that's not the school committee wouldn't necessarily be able to directly advise the athletic director. Well, I guess, again, you could have an advisory committee. It's not, you don't have to follow the advice, but there could be an advisory committee. It's not the school committee, so then it wouldn't be governance on that committee.
However, if you read the way we wrote athletic subcommittee, and this is why I was very specific when I spoke to the MASC, because we do have to stay in our lane, and this is not us governing, and it's not even oversight. It is, how are we going to support, let me just get to the wording. The athletic subcommittee shall support the effective operation and success of all athletic programs by promoting full participation of all high school teams and ensuring appropriate support through district policy, budgeting, and resource allocation in alignment with MIAA regulation. So,
Yeah, I didn't mean to poke at anybody when I said that. It's just as we started to talk about trying to figure out how do we keep kids in the system, that seems like now we're more in the problem solving than policy thing. And that's what just got my attention. And I think it's an important thing for the athletic director to try to figure out with the superintendent, but I don't know how a school committee board gets to that level of problem solving.
I'm not sure it is us doing the problem solving. It's getting the people in the room who are having that conversation about how do we make athletics better to promote participation, keep kids in Ipswich, and school committee members saying, what do you need?
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
How do you need that budget to work? What is that going to take to get there?
But is that a school committee working group, or is that an athletic director working group that we're a member of? Because the way you just described it is perfect, but that seems like that's
that
the
would be nice, but that hasn't happened in Ipswich.
Maybe we can ask.
Unless we put a policy that says it has to happen.
Yeah, maybe the policy directs the establishment. of that,
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's actually how the former athletic athletic committee or subcommittee ended up working was that Tom more or less ran it, reported out, he scheduled the meetings, he invited the participants. He had organized that back then, right? I mean, at that point, at least that's when I came on board, that's how it was operating.
As a school committee, can we direct the establishment of a formal body at his level and they report, they quarterly, whatever we need?
Right? I mean, that's how it was working. There were, if I recall correctly, it was you, Flynn, Barry was on it, Ken Swenson, a couple of coaches, and 2 students, right? I think that was the makeup.
I don't think it was effective. We need to be effective.
So who would be the chair of this committee?
One of the school committee members. The subcommittee.
If you go subcommittee, I think Paul and I are on the same lines of like, is that the best route?
I'd say we have more work to do. So,
And I don't disagree with anything you said.
no, you bring up very legitimate points.
I just wanted the government.
We want to make sure that's ironed out before we go anywhere. So.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think we all care deeply about athletics and want this to be effective. It's just like, what's the output and how do we get there to get that output? It's just still like, just think we need to hone it in. It's a relevant understanding.
And as we take it away, the only, or I shouldn't say the only, the specific objection I heard to the subcommittee versus working group was the logistics of attendees coordinating and the weight of what we have there. I'm not sure I understand the other reason you're suggesting it wouldn't be a subcommittee.
I think, do you want to speak to that, Paul? Because I think you said it better than I did.
I guess the point, so it could be a subcommittee. I think I apologize, I know I'm a new guy and you're like, man, we shouldn't have selected him. But it seems to me that solving the problems, Jen, that you're talking about, that I feel as well, I mean, I've seen teams go elsewhere, is not ours to solve. It's the athletic director's to solve. And so the athletic director, in my opinion, should be the leader of whatever the body writ large that we gather together to talk about issues. And the way Jen described it, there's school committee members on it, that when the discussion finishes up and the athletic director goes, here's the way I think we can fix it, we're the people who have the purse strings and the policy that can help him implement that thing. I think if we take it as the chair, then we have somehow subordinated the athletic director's role and responsibilities to the school committee. And I'm just not sure that's the right way. I don't know what I don't know, though. And if I were the athletic director and the school committee is sharing a thing to solve athletic problems in Ipswich, I'm not sure how I would receive that. And then, but we're policy and budget, and so we should be involved in that because it does affect Ipswich writ large. That was the point I was trying to make. Green speak, so I'm probably not being as clear.
No, I agree with
100% of it. I don't, for all the topics we've brought up and for all that we haven't, they've existed as long as have been on the board. I haven't seen recommendations brought by the athletic director or the administration to the school committee to take action. And that's the distinction that I hear Jen making of put something in place that will affect action. And that, I think, is the distinction. The working group is very operational, implementation, execution, as I understand it. So providing direction to the athletic director or principals or administrative team on taking action. Subcommittee is policy, budget, strategy, and we haven't seen execution put a body that is empowered to make changes as opposed to advised execution when we haven't seen
I
it.
just wonder if we put the formal mechanism, whatever that group is, board, bureau, cell, and we empower it through policy. And that's how, because it sounds like it hasn't met in a while, but we formalize it, we put it in policy, and we direct the athletic director to do it. I think that solves a little bit of the problem of it not generating stuff to us that we can affect, I think. But
I 100% understand what you're saying. My concern is, I don't see how establishing a policy changes the momentum that we've had in the past few years.
It
I
does
say not
though,
as an
because we
objection,
don't
but as
have
a
a
debate.
policy.
But I'm process driven.
But is the policy what's inhibiting us from addressing the issues we've heard and advancing the athletics program? Because we don't have a policy, that doesn't feel right to me.
We have policy that sets the expectation that there will be a group that produces this result and reports to the athletic director, Dr. Blake, then they can be more operational.
So maybe that's the goal of the athletic subcommittee, is to, whenever it starts, create a timeline to have more of an advisory role from the athletic director. But what I don't want to do is recreate what was already in place and not working. And that's what it sounds like we're doing.
So rewrite this, so it's a working group. Ratify and approve it in our meeting on the 26th. You put it in place time for the completion of winter sports, spring sports, see how effective it's been. My concern is it doesn't have the teeth, if you will, of the subcommittee, from what I've heard in the distinction we're trying to make. We run it for 2 athletic seasons. We feel like we're seeing improvement, great, let it run for another year. We feel like it hasn't been effective for 2 athletic seasons, switch it to a subcommittee for the 27 school year and run it that way. You could stand this up at the end of the month. Yeah, start it right away as a working group. The suggestion of focus operational implementation execution. It says superintendent's working group. You can have the exact same attendees as you have listed, so that doesn't have to change. And specifically put it in place right away. So the point of reviewing at the end of each season, addressing co-op, all of that, you can still do that right away. See how effective it is as a working group, and if we feel like we're not making the improvements that are anticipated, then it becomes subcommittee next year. Start with the lighter weight one first, run it for half a year and see what happens.
The thing about it being lightweight is the working group is supposed to be a temporary thing to an end, not an ongoing. What's the end?
No, but if it's an advisory group to the superintendent, that could be permanent. It's like what's wellness, right? That doesn't have an end date to it.
Maybe over the next couple of weeks, we can bounce some ideas back and forth. I'm still membership input, output, and where does that go? What does that output affect? I think is what I just would love to just see. Sure. And I think that working group, or whatever it is, under the first, whatever that first meeting is, whoever chairs it could really neck that down and create something that's worthy of trying to fix systemic problems. I think it's all process, and if you can take personality out of process.
Okay, so we're going to come back on the 26th.
And we have back-to-back meetings, so, I know vacation's coming up, but we can review it. I think you guys for sure need to meet and take some of this feedback. I will email you some of the feedback that I said about what I think you could include. But yeah, we meet the 26th and the 5th and the 19th, so like 3 meetings over the next month-ish.
19th?
More than a month of March.
Okay.
And everyone just, send us your thoughts as they coalesce, and we'll see if we can kind of put them together into something that makes a little bit more sense and that makes everyone a little more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, I think we all want good things, just how we get there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments on the athletic documents? Okay. Superintendent's report.
My report is in the folder tonight. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. Most of it has, the last couple of weeks have been focused around the budget um, and dealing with the issues at Doyon. Right now, our last scheduled day of school is June 18th, which is a Thursday. If we have one more snow day this year, then we're into the following week already. And then we do have to sort out the 3 days of lost learning for Doyon. If it was one day in the past, we've been able to have the teachers document some additional work that they're doing, but I think 3 days of school is a lot to just say we don't have to make anything up. And I think we have to look at what the rest of the the winter looks like. February is typically a tough month for snow, so we'll see where we end up after at least after February vacation and into March. I've had some parents reach out to me about already changing April vacation days, looking at extended school days. So I think there's a number of options that'll be available to us to consider once we get past the cold weather and we know we're safe from snow days. We had another phone call with MSBA last week to talk about the enrollment numbers and the projections that they're making. There was some concerns raised by a couple members in the community about the Swampscott numbers that had been given to Swampscott by MSBA in their enrollment projections, because when they opened the building, there were far fewer students than they had projected. And so we're trying to work through some of the methodology with MSBA to understand that better, as far as them giving us a number that we're then going to have to sign off on any building project. Tuesday night, I hosted a viewing of Keeping Kids Safe and Secure Online, a Project Safe Childhood presentation. It was from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts. I provided you the handouts from that presentation. Although I was able to print them out for the presentation, they had been sent to me. I don't know that I can just send them out to anybody and everybody. I only had 8 people attend, which was unfortunate, but it was very well received by the folks that were there. So we'll see what follow-up there is to that. They have other learning opportunities that we can look into as well. Some of the stuff that they talked about was flat out scary, what's happening, with predators and stuff online. At the North Shore Educational Consortium meeting yesterday in Beverly, talked about they had a revised budget presentation because they're not seeing the enrollments, because not unlike us, we're trying to build program in district and save money from kids going out. Well, their enrollment numbers are dropping throughout their member and non-member districts, so they had to adjust their budget. Give us an update on their capital project. They had a big project that they did for HVAC on the building that they're in. And then just looking toward the future and what programming they're going to have available. So, and we had the Wellness Committee meeting right before this for our coach, and to debrief on the road shows that took place. So, as I said, the budget has really occupied the most significant amount of time over the last couple of weeks. So that's all I got.
How did the road shows go? Did you get good feedback?
Overall, I think they, yeah. Overall, I think they
Qualify
went.
it.
I would say they went very well. I think that they got a lot of good feedback. They gathered a lot of information that they brought back to the committee that we're going to have to, continue to sort through. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of miscommunication, I should say, between one building and another, and what parents understood and what staff understood, and some of the things that are being said to students by either staff members or parents. We're finding out that a lot of it is actually coming from the parents. And so a lot of work to do, but I thought it was a lot of great feedback.
The focus of that is like the implementation piece. Like, what does this look like in action?
So,
kind of,
so last
of the
year,
in terms of the
last year when we joined this program, it was to help us design and build the policy. We built it. This is year 2, and in the program, it's all about the implementation of it. So, bless you. Thanks.
Dr. Blake?
With the, not for Dr. Blake, with the students that were affected or families that were affected with the closures at Doyon, that is not a separate issue from the need for a new elementary school building. We hear multiple times a week from a very small number, almost singular person who's trying to prevent a new school building from happening. If you have a student at Doyon that was affected and it disrupted you, your student, your work schedule, take 30 seconds, email the school committee, email the select board, and let them know how much you support a new elementary school. And remember this next time comes to vote. There's a very, very small number of people, but very vocal, trying to prevent a new school building because they don't agree with it. Don't let that happen. Use the frustration or the pain you felt this month and let people know how you feel about it. That's what's going to get us into a new school building and prevent these kind of things from happening.
And I'll piggyback that Winthrop's not safe from something catastrophic happening there either. Anything else? Okay. Subcommittee working group and liaison reports. I'm doing a quick peek and I'm not sure who's met.
I was unable to attend IEF on Monday, so actually,
As was I.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody else meeting with anybody?
Budget's met
Twice in the last week.
You guys want to talk more about budget? We do a second round?
That one, guys. We got enough of you.
I kind of have, it's related to strategic plan and the turf field house. It's seeming like this is a hope and a dream to have it on the capital plan, at least for this year. Has that group met to talk about next steps? Because my concern is there's been a lot of money sitting. The project is only going to get exponentially more expensive. This number is only going to grow and it's uncomfortable.
So that group, I think I've been at all of their meetings. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's some emails going around now. They're trying to get started, and there's members of the group that are hesitant because we don't have the full amount to finish it. It was at Tom's suggestion, my suggestion, this money put on this list. Because it just, people need to know that we have a
And
project
you're-
that's,
Just because it's on the table, you're talking about the capital plan.
yes, I'm sorry, the capital plan. So if you have an opinion, there's a lot of details because there's a lot of builders, contractors, architects involved. I think the sense of that committee is that they want to start and get to a certain point, even though they don't have the full amount. Tom, is that your
Yeah.
sense?
I mean, that's the sense. The recommendation from the subcommittee, was it 2 weeks ago, Jen, I think? Was that we do a procurement this spring, and as part of the bid package, we put together a phasing, a 2-step phase for construction. to be able to get to a place and use the available resources that we have now, which is about $640,000. And knowing that we're 300,000 or more away from the latest quote on the full job, but at least get a next big piece of it rolling and get get something moving, and then have the conversation next fall and next winter about phase 2.
So how does this, how do we achieve this number?
So there's members of that committee that think we should go back to Payne. There's members of the committee, I think everybody agrees that 1/3 of that amount, so the amount is about $301,000, that 1/3 of that amount should come from, as he said, John Q. Public, fundraisers like let's buy bricks and make a brick road to it, and just like the Veteran Memorial. And the problem is there's no fundraiser on that committee. It's all talk about what type of private fundraising can be done.
I think there's some hope that by getting something out of the ground, right now there's just a poster on the side of the ticket booth showing what the proposed project looks like. I think there's some thinking that once there's something out of the ground, a structure, that people would be more prone to donate to something that's already in existence.
Including, I think, private donations,
Sure.
not just public.
Yeah. Because I think, part of it is that this had some momentum years ago with a couple of years of Payne grants and then leftover money from when the turf field was initially built. And this was designed for phase 2. And then COVID hit and it kind of got put on the back burner. And so now that momentum isn't there yet, again, but yet they're sitting on a significant amount of money. So I think we want to get this moving again, so that there's something visible that folks can see, oh yeah, they're trying to do that. Let's donate.
So is your question / concern, let's get moving on it?
Let's get it done, but like how, if again, this is not finalized, but there's a lot of competing priorities here. If it doesn't work on the capital plan, like it's 301 this year. Well, if we delay the next year, what's it going to be? In the meantime, there's a lot of Payne money that's been tied up in it, so I'd like to see it go to that.
So does a phase 1 of getting it going this year sound like a good idea?
How much money
They asked me,
do we
what
have right
is-
now?
How much is there now? About 640,000. About, from 2 different sources.
You guys discussed right-sizing the building to that amount instead of getting more?
I didn't hear you.
If you discuss right-sizing the building to the approximately
Oh, yeah.
700,000 as opposed to,
Completely.
Already, building came in at well over $1 million initially, and they've already value engineered it back down to about $1 million. And so to value engineer it any further would essentially defeat the purpose of building it at all. They're looking for team rooms and a concession stand that's going to be able to be big enough to support 2 teams and concessions and bathrooms. It can't be any smaller.
Can't be
and
any
meet that-
smaller. There's
and meet
concern that
need.
like for a football team that the
got
2
it.
rooms are
okay.
too tight in the plan.
And part of the value engineering to bring it down from the original specs included, taking away the component of it being a locker room and taking away the component of any showers or anything like that. There will be restrooms, but
Yeah, I gotcha.
Because those things already exist in the main building?
no, they just wouldn't.
Just to try, wow.
See, right now, the driving force is, as been referred to, is for team space. When there are teams playing, there is not a space in an enclosed space for either the home team or the visiting teams to be. So there's no place to have any privacy, to have a team meeting, to change clothing, to
Wrap an ankle or a groin.
Yeah, exactly. Take care of a health need, or there's none of that. It's just the bleachers.
But if there's no locker room, how will they change clothing?
Well, there would be a team room, so there'd be lockers. There wouldn't be lockers.
There's physical walls.
Correct. Walls and benches and bathrooms. So there'd be some privacy, and your team would have its room.
Right now, away teams go to the end zone, far end zone, and kind of sit and talk during halftime. Oh,
Yeah.
All right, finance report.
Thank you. So in your packets tonight, the end of January reports. Quickly opening the monthly report for the year-to-date spending through the end of January. We continue to perform well with regard to spending in fiscal 26. We've just completed effectively month number 7, meaning through January, which is about 60% of the year, and we've spent a little more than 60% of the budget. So that's pretty much on par. There's nothing extraordinary there to report. If anyone has any questions, we could certainly cover them at any time. But the year-to-date for fiscal 26 is in good stead. Call your attention to the revolving fund and stabilization report. I was able to remember to add in the colored lines.
I noticed it.
So just saying.
So helpful, thank you.
So just a couple of things to point out very quickly there. In the last 2 months, under the high school gifts, under the last 2 months, you have seen, and at this body, you've accepted quite a few gifts. You'll be doing another one this evening. So between November and in January, we've seen about $12,000 in gifts there come into the high school, all principally for the robotics and the RC Challenge program. We see an income going down to the revolving funds, just to point out some of the largest one, second one down. School choice, we received a school choice payment, which we will receive on a quarterly basis. So there's a small bump there in revenues since the last month. The same occurred halfway down the list, R11 for circuit breaker. We also get quarterly payments from the state and circuit breaker, which is obviously a noticeably larger figure. So that continues as expected. The other things just to point out that have notable balance differences. Our two stabilization funds, school stabilization down the bottom at T29, and underneath that special education reserve at T31. The town treasurer applied the quarterly interest, so that's why both of those have an increase, because the interest payments, the interest earnings have been applied to those funds. I can go on if you'd like.
It's lovely.
But anyways, so happy to obviously entertain questions now or at any time.
I just have a question for Sasha. I'm sorry, because this is a late meeting, but you brought up putting the coaches' salaries back in from the revolving athletic?
Yeah.
And what line?
So that's the first line, and it's RO2, high school athletics.
We only have $44,000 in there.
You've been withdrawing from there already this year, though, Tom, right, for this year's salaries?
Yeah,
That's why,
so-
Jen, it's already coming out. This isn't the
Okay.
44 we have left. That gets replenished at the end, at the beginning of the year, someone plays a spring sport for the first time. So that'll get replenished, which would cover the salaries, just like it did this year.
That's what we're hoping.
It's a very active fund. On a routine basis, there are expenses coming out, and then there are big chunks of income when parents are paying fees at the beginning of each season.
Right.
So I would anticipate, even if we look historically at even last year's reports, you'll see some ebbs and flows about revenue. There's expenses coming out all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked about this at budget subcommittee, though, like students on waivers, we have $41,000 of unpaid
We do.
athletic fees. That could be greater. We have people on payment plans, so there's not always one lump sum, and we have diminishing players.
Sure. Yeah. There was never one lump sum. It's a very active fund.
Well,
It's
yeah.
used all the time.
Hopefully spring sports are.
All right. Okay, new business? Vouchers and bills.
So vouchers and bills. The committee last meeting had asked her to do, have me prepare something for that, which I think is appropriate. It's now added as a active agenda item. So in your packets is a what I'll call a draft report for to see if it's of value to you. But I would consider a monthly report of expenditures. I recommend, based on the committee's inquiry, that I could produce this report at every monthly meeting when we do finance reports, and it shows the expenditures of the prior month that work their way throughout from procurement to expenditure to processing through my office. As you know, the reports, every expenditure gets approved as part of a batch. It goes through my office. I approve those batches. Then it goes to Jen. The committee is a designee. You all should be getting. I'm looking at Haley.
Yeah, I'm
Looking
getting.
at-
I
looking
just
right at
opened
Haley.
one, but I saw them come through.
You all should be getting, although Paul's probably
Oh,
not.
I was just gonna
my
say. I
God.
was sitting right
Okay. Anyways, with the exception of Paul,
Doing great.
but the exception of Paul, you all should be getting so we expend two types of bills every month, as you can appreciate. We expend payroll and then non-payroll items. This is what January's spending was. So we had typically two payrolls in the month, and then every week we have non-salary related contracted services items. I batch them based on the type of expenditure that it is. So if something is paid out of a FEFI's grant of any kind, that's line item 4, it would appear that we didn't have any FEFI's expenditures in January. So obviously there's nothing to report there. A variety of contracted services, but that is what the category of them are. Number 10 is what's called an intermunicipal exchange. That is just something that does not go through the warrant process, but it's an expenditure that the school district has in which we pay the town, or in, I think, a rare case, the town would pay us. A recent example of this, if I had this report for the month of December, municipal exchange would be that the town clerk had billed us for the special election. So I had made that payment to the town clerk. We're not going to write a check payable to the town of Ipswich and hand it to the town clerk and then she deposits it, right? So it's an intermunicipal exchange of resources. School facilities, number 11, there's an insurance refund if that occurs for a variety of relatively small reasons. That could be. School facilities is a monthly expenses that occur, obviously. School food service bills are routine. Student activity accounts are routine. Special education costs are routine. So most of these items 4 through 17 or 18 you would see on a monthly basis, or certainly in a report like this. So again, this is just my draft of what a monthly report could look like, if it works for you folks. If not, then I can amend it and revise it.
I like it. Anybody else? Oh, we had the official walkthrough, like, I think we'll be able
Covered every year, every month rather, and just.
to. Yeah, that's, I think, super, I hope it's not a big lift for you.
Well, the creation of it was, but I've got templates and
Okay.
I've got it going. It's all good.
All right, very much appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's
this is super helpful.
Yeah.
The only new business in your packets this evening also is the January facilities report. And Rob has a good sense of humor. He says January was a long year. I think that sums up his month. 2-page report of just all the things that were happening in the district regarding school facilities.
Okay. All right, consent agenda. All right. Move that the Ipswich School Committee confirm receipt of the monthly report of expenditures for January 2026 as presented and approve payment of vouchers and bills as warrants. Move that the Ipswich School Committee approve the meeting minutes from January 8th, 2026 as presented. Move to accept with gratitude a donation of $550 from Brett and Janet Emerson of Ipswich for the 2026 Racing Challenge trip to be deposited into the high school gift account for the exclusive use for the Racing Challenge program. Moved by me, second by Matt. Further discussion? All in favor? There a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jen, second by Haley. All in favor? All right, we are adjourned at 10:43. So
Could have been worse.
All right.